like to call to order the conditional use hearing. Conditional use hearing to consider the repurposing of the building located at 1200 West Sweetsford Road for use as an elementary school by the Tredyffrin Easttown School District. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here on the conditional use application of the Tredyffrin Easttown School District for the property located at 1200 West Sweetsford Road in Berwyn, being UPI number 43-10-28. The parcel is approximately 15 acres in area and is located within the following zoning districts: the O Office, the C2 Commercial, and the IO Institutional Overlay zoning districts. The applicant is now the owner of the parcel and seeks conditional use approval pursuant to section 208-45.d to permit the conversion of the existing office building into an elementary school. I've marked the following board exhibits for the hearing this evening. Board Exhibit 1 is the notice of the hearing. Board Exhibit 2 is the proof of publication of the notice in the Daily Local News on September 2nd and September 9th. Board Exhibit 3 is the proof of posting of the notice on the subject property. Board Exhibit 4 is the proof of mailing of the notice to surrounding residents. Board Exhibit 5 is a tax parcel map depicting the location of the property. And Board Exhibit 6 is the zoning ordinance by reference. I'll note for the record that the applicant is present and represented by counsel David Falcone, who is also present. Before we move to the substance of the application, we do have a few members of the public, so I want to make a brief announcement. Any member of the public here this evening has the right to be heard on the application. You have the right to offer comments in favor of or against the application. You have the right to request party status in the proceeding, which, if granted by the board, would permit you to cross-examine the witnesses, present your own witnesses or your own documentary evidence. Generally speaking, if you are a party, you are permitted to appeal the board's decision if you are dissatisfied with that decision. You do not have to become a party if you simply want to make a comment one way or the other. Relevant to the board's inquiry on whether or not to grant party status will be whether or not you received a copy of the hearing notice in the mail, as well as your location to the subject property. So those are questions that we may ask. So before we go any farther, is there anyone here tonight who would like to request party status? All right, let the record reflect that no one has so requested. Mr. Falcone, the floor is yours. Turn it over to you.
Before we start, can I just make one thing clear? We have a regular board meeting at 7 p.m., and so if we go over, we will just continue your hearing to another date. Okay?
Understood. We'll do our best to keep it moving. Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. McKenna, for hearing us tonight, and board. We are here on behalf of the school district, who is, as Mr. McKenna noted, seeking to repurpose an existing office building located at 1200 Sweetsford Road. That's a building that was owned by Brandywine. The school district has already acquired that building and is in the process of doing what we're doing tonight. I'll give a little bit of background on why we're here, and then we'll get right into the two witnesses I intend to call. As part of the hearing tonight, you will understand that in the current state for the district, there is some elementary overcrowding. Previous to this application, the district came through seeking approval from the zoning hearing board and a recommendation from the planning commission to install modular classrooms at one of their elementary schools. And that was a necessity as a result of the number of students that were in that school. We moved through that process. We had a unanimous recommendation from the planning commission, ultimate approval from the zoning hearing board. But one of the conditions of that approval was that we come through with this application and seek to find more permanent solutions for these students. The district considered several options for a new elementary school and found this to be both the best from their perspective and, in their opinion, the best from a community perspective by being able to repurpose basically an empty office asset. So we all know the office market is a difficult market right now, and there are lots of assets out there that are kind of in need of repurposing. So this met the district's need and, in their opinion, also met a community need as well. The district appeared as part of this application, the conditional use application, before the planning commission seeking a recommendation. That recommendation was made just recently by unanimous vote of the planning commission to move forward, asking this board to consider the conditional use. I will note, as I did previously, that the applicant also appeared as part of this office expansion before the zoning hearing board, and the zoning hearing board saw fit to grant several variances with respect to side yard encroachments, existing buffers. One variance that was unique to this property and was not existing was a new fence, which the district does across its portfolio, which is a higher fence, a 6-foot fence, as opposed to what would be otherwise permitted as a 4-foot fence. So the other variances that the district sought as part of its zoning hearing board application were basically existing conditions for the office, but because of the change in use, we went back to the board to confirm their existence and allow them to continue. That application was approved by the zoning hearing board, again, in unanimous fashion. So with me tonight, I have Matt Heckendorn, who's the architect on the project and who's also the architect generally for the district for their projects throughout, and Mike Kissinger, who's our civil engineer. We've pre-marked 12 exhibits. I've dropped those on your desk up there. A1 is a copy of the application that we're here for tonight. A2 is a deed. A3 are some aerial photographs. A4 is a natural features and conservation plan. A5 is a site plan. A6 are some views of the existing conditions on the site. A7, existing and proposed site. A8 would be your floor plans for the building to give you an understanding of what we are proposing there. A9 is a concept design. A10 is that zoning hearing board decision of granting the variances for this specific project. A11 is Matt's CV, and A12 would be Mike's CV. So if there aren't any questions for me, I'll go ahead and call that first witness.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Matt, can you please be sworn?
Yes.
Matt, by whom are you employed?
Heckendorn Shiles Architects.
And can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Heckendorn is spelled Heckendorn.
And what's your position with Heckendorn Shiles?
President.
And can you please describe your educational and professional background for the board?
Yes, I'm a graduate of Drexel University. I've been practicing architecture since '97, a principal with Heckendorn Shiles Architects since 2007, experience within the township designing a large number of educational and corporate projects.
We've marked in the package Exhibit A11 as your CV. Is that an accurate depiction of your education and professional experience as you've just described?
Yes, it is.
And have you previously been offered as an expert in the area of architecture and design, and most specifically here in Tredyffrin Township?
Yes, I have.
And you've been admitted as so?
Yes, I have.
I would like to move Matt as an expert in the area of architecture and design with a specialty in school design and architecture.
He'll be so admitted.
Thank you. Matt, you're familiar with the plans in the application tonight, correct?
Yes, I am.
And did you prepare the exhibits that we've marked Exhibit A6, A7, A8, A9?
Yes.
And with respect to design, have you been involved with this project since its inception?
Yes, I have.
Can you describe for the board what is being proposed at the property, understanding that after your testimony, we're going to call Mike Kissinger to discuss the engineering aspects?
Certainly. The applicant is proposing to repurpose the existing office building located at 1200 Sweetsford Road, converting the existing office into an elementary school.
Will the current building be demolished?
It will not.
Will it be refaced?
Portions of the building would be refaced. We're essentially infilling some of the articulated sort of bumps in and outs within the facade and adding an addition.
And do we have renderings that might depict what we're proposing here?
Yes, if you refer to Exhibit A9, there are several renderings indicating the anticipated improved condition of the property.
And how many floors are being proposed?
3.
And is that a change from what's there today?
No, 3 stories exist today.
And how does the district plan to program the space, understanding that this is kind of the initial programming plan?
So if you refer to Exhibit A8, there are several drawings which depict the anticipated modifications. So the intention is to place the kindergarten and first grade classrooms at the first floor along with the cafeteria and the main office. The second floor will include second grade classrooms, the library, science labs, music, and art rooms. The third room will house third and fourth grade classrooms and a flexible instructional meeting room. There's also an amount of shell space there, which would initially be utilized for storage and would have a to-be-determined use in the future. The first floor addition at the north of the existing structure would house gymnasium and auditorium functions.
And approximately how many students will the proposed building have when opening?
On opening, it will have approximately 450 students.
Is there additional capacity for that number to grow if needed?
The opening of the new school will shift the elementary occupancy, the quantity of schools, from 5 elementaries to 6 elementary schools. That's expected to relieve some of the pressure the district is currently experiencing regarding the overall classroom inventory. There's also that additional shell space that I mentioned on the third floor that will have a to-be-determined use in the future.
And can you describe for the board the intended access points for entry to the school?
Yes, so the north entrance at the new bus loop will be the primary entry point for students utilizing buses. That will also be the visitor's entrance, so very similar to the existing entrance, kind of shifted off-center a slight amount at the north. The south entrance will be utilized in a more limited capacity. It will function for drop-off and passenger vehicle pickups. During the school day, that space will be utilized for students to access the playgrounds and playing fields to the south.
We have up on the screen what we've marked as Exhibit A7. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the 2 images shown on the screen on the left is your existing conditions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And on the right is the proposed site plan.
That is correct.
And the district, looking at Exhibit A7, intends to utilize generally the traffic flow and patterns that are on the site today. Is that correct?
That is correct. The ingress and egress will continue to be from Swedesford Road, and the parking lot will be reconfigured in order to provide an extensive passenger vehicle drop-off and pickup line, which Mr. Kissinger will comment on more specifically in a few moments.
And based on your experience in designing schools and basically repurposing buildings, is this flow what you would generally see and what you consider appropriate design?
Yes, it is.
And do you currently handle all of the district's needs with respect to architecture and design?
Yes, we do.
Do you meet regularly with the board and its staff?
Yes.
And you heard me mention earlier that there is a current need for expansion. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you've heard me mention that the prior application that the district submitted to install modular classrooms, correct?
Yes.
And you were a part of that application?
Yes.
And in your capacity as the architect for the district, is it your specific understanding and belief that there is a need today for additional elementary school in Tredyffrin East Town?
Yes.
And can you elaborate on that need, please?
So there are several drivers associated with the need for the 6th elementary school. Student enrollment, current and projected to remain high, and increased demand on classroom inventory for special education programs. Other room utilization demands include the state-mandated implementation of Pennsylvania science, technology, and engineering, and environmental literacy and sustainability, sort of an acronym of STEELS standards is also a driver. There's also a desire to expand student support programs. And lastly, the other major need is the ability to implement full-day kindergarten within the district.
And the district did consider multiple locations for a new elementary school, is that correct?
Yes, they did.
And you were a part of those discussions?
Yes.
And is it your opinion that the proposed building and the subject site adequately meet the needs of the district?
Yes, it is.
We noted earlier that you've offered testimony in Tredyffrin before, is that correct?
That is correct.
So you are familiar with the Township zoning ordinance?
Yes, I am.
And you've had a chance to review it again before tonight's hearing?
Yes.
And with your understanding of the code and your experience in design of school buildings, is it your opinion the subject repurposing at 1200 Swedesford is consistent with the spirit and intent of the Tredyffrin zoning ordinance?
Yes, it is. The intended use is specifically called out as a use permitted by conditional use. Beyond that, the district is able to take an underutilized and underperforming asset and repurpose it to serve the important and immediate need of educating children.
And from a design perspective, any concerns with respect to health, safety, or welfare?
No.
Will the proposed repurposing lead to any overcrowding of land or unduly taxed township services?
No, it will not.
Will it create a safety hazard?
No, it will not.
And given your understanding of the area, you visited this site, is that correct?
Many times.
You're familiar with the surrounding uses, the surrounding properties, is that correct?
Yes.
And will this proposed repurposing for school purposes detract from those surrounding properties or the use thereof?
It will not. The current structure is located within an office park, and the use itself will have very little impact on the current property or adjacent properties because the building itself already exists.
Given your experience, again, in school design, anything that is a part of this application that would run contrary to the public interest?
No.
I have no additional questions for Mr. Heckendorn.
Does the board have any questions for this witness? They do have additional witnesses, including the engineer. You're gonna have to put your microphone on.
I was asking, K.S. Bhaskar, Supervisor, so I'm wondering whether we can ask questions after both the witnesses have, does the question have to be specific to a witness? Because I have a couple of questions, but I don't know to whom I should ask.
Yeah, it should be for this witness specific to his testimony. If you have any questions specific to his testimony, now would be the time. Otherwise, you might want to hold it until the engineer testifies. But even if neither of those two answer your questions, we'll certainly get an answer before we leave tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about stormwater?
So Mr. Kissinger is going to speak directly to stormwater.
Anyone else with questions for this witness? Yes?
Can I ask you a question in reference to the building? Do you know what year that building was built?
When the structure was originally built, is that
Yes.
your question? It was in the early 90s, I think 93.
Okay, so this may sound far-fetched, but to your knowledge, there is no material in there that when you'll be tearing out or putting in that'll have asbestos or anything that would relate to the children?
There was a study conducted to confirm the lack of asbestos products within the structure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'd ask the district to call the next witness then, please. And I might ask David to slow down just a little bit for the court reporter. I think she might appreciate that if I had to guess.
I'm Italian. It's very difficult, but I will do my best.
You can use your hands all you want, maybe just slow down, that was all.
Sure, sorry. Okay, Mike, can you get sworn? Mike, can you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Sure, it's Michael Kissinger. Kissinger is Kissinger.
And by whom are you employed?
Pannoni Associates, which is Pennoni.
And what's your position with Pannoni?
I'm an associate vice president in charge of land development.
Can you describe for the board your professional and educational background?
I am also a Drexel graduate. I've been practicing land development for about 25 years.
We've marked as Exhibit A12, a copy of your CV. Is that an accurate representation of your professional and educational experience?
It is.
And have you previously offered testimony in Tredyffrin Township with respect to civil engineering projects?
I have.
And have you been admitted as an expert?
I have.
And have you offered testimony on behalf of the school district?
I have.
I would like to submit Mike as an expert in the area of civil engineering and design.
He'll be so admitted.
Thank you. Mike, did your firm prepare the plans that we've marked exhibits A4 and A5?
We did.
And were those plans prepared under your supervision?
They are, yes they are.
So you're thoroughly familiar with them.
I am.
Using the plans, can you describe for the board what the current condition of the property is?
Sure. So the current facility is an office park with a drop-off loop in the front along Sweetsford Road. There's also a large parking lot that is along Sweetsford Road that was built in about 2014. In the rear of the property was the historic parking that was built with the structure that Mr. Heckendorn referred to in the mid-90s. So there's 3 real large parking areas, the structure in the middle there with a drop-off area.
And just for points of reference again, we still have up on the screen Exhibit A7, and that's what you're referencing when you're describing for the board current conditions, correct?
Yes, the left side of that plan.
And can you explain for the board and show them where the current access points are on the property?
Sure, see if this bleeps out, and it did. Basically on Exhibit A7, referring to the left-hand side, on the top right-hand side of that diagram, there is the access point off of Sweetsford Road, which is a signalized intersection across the street from the hotel property. And that access point is the main access point to the existing structure as well as the neighboring office structure.
Is all of the parking on-site surface parking?
Yes, there are 631 existing spaces.
Is there any stormwater management on the property currently?
Yes, there are a lot of stormwater basins. Would you like me to go into detail?
I would.
So there is a large pond in the rear of the property. That basin was actually built when the building was originally constructed in the 90s. So that basin is very deep. It's an aligned basin that always has water in it. And then when the parking lot was expanded in 2014, there were 4 underground basins and 3 surface basins constructed on the Sweetsford Road side of the structure. All of those basins will remain as part of the project.
You mentioned the existing pond. If you're looking at the existing site plan towards the rear of the property, that pond's going away, correct?
Correct. I should have said all the 2014 ponds or basins will remain, yes. The pond in the rear. Go ahead, sorry, Dave.
I know this was a question from the Planning Commission, so I want to make sure that we're clear. And I'm not sure Exhibit A7 is the best plan to show existing stormwater management, but you were clear with the Planning Commission. In the parking lot, kind of up against Sweetsford Road, there are several large basins there, correct?
Yes.
And those large basins will remain unchanged.
Correct.
And those basins were designed specifically with the idea that there may be an even additional office building to the rear of the property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they were designed at essentially an anticipated impervious coverage number. Is that correct?
Yes.
And have you analyzed the current impervious coverage on the site?
Yes, we have.
And what is that number?
It's about 57% of the site is currently impervious.
So the stormwater management that exists today is there and designed to capture a property that is 57% impervious.
Correct.
What is the impervious that's being proposed after the district's development?
Look for the exact number. I believe it's 46%.
Would it be 48.6?
48.6. Thank you, Dave.
And so that number, again, retains all of those existing stormwater management conditions, correct?
That is true, yes.
But you are also proposing additional stormwater management with this project.
Correct. We are proposing 2 additional basins on the Sweetsford Road side of the property. One under our future bus loop and one under the future parking lot that we are adding to along the left side of the structure on Exhibit A8. A7. And additionally, the basin in the rear that is a current pond, we're replacing that basin with an underground basin. So that stormwater volume will still be accounted for. It'll just be an underground basin instead of a surface basin.
So is it your opinion then that this property, even after this proposed repurposing, is adequately maintained from a stormwater purpose?
I believe it exceeds code in terms of the stormwater required.
Did you hear the testimony from Mr. Heckendorn tonight?
I did.
And do you agree with all of the testimony that he offered?
Yes, I do.
So then, building on what Matt offered, can you explain to the board the proposed use of the property from an engineering perspective?
Essentially, it's going to be used as a public elementary school and function much like the other 5 schools in the district do today. This one will be unique in the fact that it has more parking than any of the others and larger areas to circulate on site.
You heard Matt say the existing building will itself not be demolished, and you obviously agree with that.
Correct.
But there will be certain improvements on the property that will be removed or demolished. You
Mhm.
touched on a few of those, but can we just highlight again what we are removing from the site, paying particular attention to that rear parking area?
Sure. So again, referring to A7, the left and right side, the right-hand side you can see on the south side of the building is green essentially. So large majority of that area will be grass, either via baseball field or a turf field, or I'm sorry, baseball field or a soccer field. There is a small square of turf that is being put in, as well as the rubberized surface for the new playgrounds would be there as well. So you can see just from looking from the left side to the right side, just the large amount of impervious that will be pulled up in the rear of that property. Also, if you look to the Sweetsford Road side of the parcel, you can see that the same parking, same trees, because all those trees that are shown there are existing. And then you'll see that there is a large piece of the parking lot closest to the entrance that we're also removing, again, to reduce impervious to the front side of the property.
And just to be clear, even though we are removing a large portion of the parking here, the property is still compliant from a parking perspective.
Yes, well exceeds.
And it exceeds what we show at other schools throughout the district, correct?
Yes, it does.
So let's now look at traffic flow. Have you studied the traffic impact of this project?
We have.
And generally speaking, are there any negative impacts from this project on the community with respect to traffic generation?
No, an elementary school's peak time differences are different than what an office would be. So in terms of the peak timing of the office in the afternoon, the school will be let out before that peak really hits. There is an increased number of vehicles just because cars will enter and exit pretty quickly rather than an office that stays. However, the signal and the layout are more than adequate to handle that, and we feel that we will probably looking at signal retiming in that intersection, and that's about it. The rest of the intersection and the site is well prepared to handle this traffic.
How about traffic flow within the site?
Mhm.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So this will be harder to describe without pointing at things, but if you look at the structure, again, I'm referring to the right-hand side of A7, on the office building on the bottom right-hand corner of that property is where, in the afternoon, cars will queue up to pick up their children. And then that line can move on the plan to the left, and then the cars can actually move up the plan, and in case if they need to, it can actually wrap around the piece at the top along Sweetsford Road. So this site has a unique ability to have a lot of car pickup and queuing area that most of the elementary schools in the area do not have. So without impacting any public roads or anything, or even impacting the rest of the circulation of the site itself. So when you come in that main entrance again, if I lead you in there, there's also an oval shape that's on the north side of the new structure. That north oval is for buses, and so those buses will queue in there. We have the ability to store anywhere from 8 to 12 buses, which again exceeds what we would typically require for an elementary school. But again, cars will be jumping, going through those other lanes. The buses will be separate. And that is very unique to the elementary schools, because right now you have a situation where buses and cars are using the same lanes. So we would, this is a great improvement, I think, and very well suited.
And just to be clear again, this was a question the Planning Commission wanted clarity on. We are able, as a result of this current condition, to basically pull all of the traffic that might otherwise stack, and we see in some other schools it stacks out onto public streets, onto the site, and it stacks internally, correct?
That is correct.
You mentioned the bus queuing, which is great. How about parent pickup? They'll come in. Is this plan contemplating making sure all stacked cars for parents could be handled on this site?
Yes, this absolutely. So I believe it's as well over 100 cars that could be stacked on this without having any impact to the surrounding area. And current today, the other elementary schools do not see volume like that. So we have the ability to really take care of that circulation issue on this property.
Mike, and you mentioned that the parent pickup cars will enter the site exactly kind of in the same location as the buses off of Sweetsford Road, and then they loop around the existing parking lot to the, I guess, is that to the north? To the north on the site around Sweetsford Road, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then they stack down the western side all the way to the rear of the building, also correct?
Correct.
Do they double stack?
They do double stack for the majority of that lane. It's a 3-lane wide road, so there's 2 lanes of cars and a bypass if something were to happen. And then as it gets to the south side of the structure, it'll transition to a single stack lane. And that single stack lane is where children would interact with the cars. Children would not interact with the cars in the double stacked condition. So as those cars move out, others would move in, and that's how it would continue to operate.
How about from a safety perspective, Mike? Is there any way outside of normal arrival and dismissal times to cordon off this area from visitors coming in and being back into where the students are kind of out and about?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, with the impervious and how we were really looking at playground areas and so on, one of the biggest advantages of this is that I'll start again at A7 right-hand side on the proposed side. Just to the right-hand side of the office structure, or now the new elementary structure, you'll see there's a line crossing that road. That is a gate. So that will be gated off during all school hours. And then if you look to the west side of the property, there is about 5 or 6 trees in a row there. And again, that same line, again, an additional gate. So during school hours, there will be no access to the rear of that property at all. That area will double as playground space and activity area. And then once the drop-off, or once, parent pickup started, those gates would open and the cars would be allowed to queue into those locations. So that would be gated off during school hours and only accessible during these times of the day.
So understanding that those areas are closed during the day, then where would the public entrance to the school be?
Public entrance, if you see the new shape, and there is a building addition shown on the western side of the structure, basically right there in the corner of the existing structure and the proposed structure is where that new entrance would be.
How about visitor parking?
Visitor parking, there are ADA compliant spaces in the oval, and then also there's plenty of parking along Sweetsford Road and a new lot just on the west side of the existing structure. That would be for staff and visitors.
And you just mentioned the proposed addition to the building. Just again for clarity, where is that addition?
It is on the west side of the existing structure projecting north towards Sweetsford.
And that proposed addition will meet all of the code requirements?
Yes, it will.
Does your plan set include a general summary of code requirements?
It does.
Can you direct the board to that summary?
If I refer to Exhibit A5 in the bottom right-hand corner, it lists the Tredyffrin Township zoning compliance or conformance chart, and that is a series of metrics of the zoning ordinance.
Great. And aside from the relief that I previously mentioned and that we obtained from the zoning hearing board, does the project otherwise comply with the various area and bulk requirements in the district?
Yes, it does.
And you've served as the engineer of record for the district on all their recent expansion and development projects?
Yes.
You're familiar with the current projects to expand at the high school and provide modular classrooms at the elementary school, correct?
I am aware, yes.
And is it your understanding that the district is proposing the current repurposing of the office at 1200 Sweetsford to meet the current and anticipated needs in enrollment?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And it's true that the district has been considering locations for a new elementary school for some time, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you have also been a part of those discussions?
I have.
Is it your opinion that the proposed building and site adequately meet the needs of the district?
It does, yes.
And we've noted earlier that you've offered testimony in Tredyffrin before, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the township's code?
Yes.
And did you review it for tonight's meeting?
Yes.
And with that understanding of the Tredyffrin code, is it your experience and understanding that the repurposing of the building at 1200 Sweetsford is consistent with the spirit and intent of that ordinance?
It is.
Will the proposed repurposing of the office building negatively impact the public health, safety, and welfare?
No, it will not.
Will it lead to an overcrowding of land?
No, it will not.
Will it unduly tax township services?
No.
Will the new school create a safety hazard in your opinion?
No, it will not.
You're familiar with the subject site, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
You visited it in person?
Yes.
Will it detract from the surrounding uses?
No, it will not.
Does the project limit the number of access points?
It does not limit it, that we are maintaining the existing access points, and we didn't mention this earlier, so along Sweetsford Road is the primary access point. There is an emergency access point along Howellville Road that is shown, again, if I refer to A7 right-hand side, which is proposed, almost in the W of Howellville there. You can see there's a grade-in line. That is the emergency access way that exists today and would run then through the asphalt area of the playground and back into the property. So those two existing access points are sufficient and are being maintained.
With respect to the emergency access, that will not be a public access that would be open for general ingress and egress, is that correct?
Correct.
But emergency vehicles would have the ability to access the property from that location.
That is correct.
Is any on-street parking being proposed or anticipated?
None.
Will this project, in your opinion, lead to an overcrowding of the highway or unreasonable congestion?
No, not at all.
I have no other questions for Mr. Kissinger.
Does the board have any questions for this witness?
I have a couple of questions. One is, I noticed that in the plan, you talk about the emergency access at the bottom of Howellville Road, but it looks like there's a small access on the top as well that goes into the, like the backyard of someone else's property, which is, if you look at the exhibit A4, that kind of shows, you see there's that access point right above the gate that looks like a little cloth or is that just an artifact of the drawing, or is that really a little driveway?
I believe if you're pointing to about here.
Yep, exactly.
It happens to be two trees that kind of touch it, and it kind of looks like an access point. So I think that's just a factor of being the plan too small. So,
Sure, okay.
yeah, no access point is proposed at that location.
Okay, and then you talked about a rubberized surface for a play area. Is that rubberized surface chopped up tires, or is it sort of like the flat rubberized surface which has a little bit of a bounce to it so that if someone happens to fall off a swing, they don't break?
It is not chopped up tires. It is a rubber material, but it's not chopped up tires, and it is a bouncier material, and it's the same material we've now installed at Valley Forge Elementary as well as Hillside, and I believe Devon has it as well.
Okay.
So those three schools now have those same materials.
Okay, and then one last question, which is one question and then one comment after that. What's the current status of insulation in the building? Does it meet LEED standards? Are you able to bring it up to LEED standards?
That one's
That's
for Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, and which is more of a comment, I guess, which is it possible to put solar panels on? So I was asking about the state of insulation in the building, whether it complies with current LEED standards for buildings. And then the other one was whether you had considered putting solar panels on the roof, because it's an excellent location for solar panels with unobstructed access.
I was going to say, Matt can answer both of those, or do you want to?
We'll finish.
Yeah.
We'll finish with Mike, and then we'll call Matt back.
I just had one quick question, which is, have you reviewed the stormwater plan with the township engineer?
Yes, we have.
And he's good with it?
He's not under oath, so.
No, he's not. So you can answer. Why don't you just tell me?
Yes, we've had multiple meetings with your consultants as well as Mr. Burgo and staff.
Okay.
And so a lot of we've submitted it back and forth a few times, and I believe that yes, he agrees, and it's been a real partnership working with your staff and your consultants to get it to comply.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask you a question? This, again, might sound a little crazy. On the old picture of the building right now, right above in the middle, it seems like there's a whole bunch of trees. Okay? When I look at the new side, I don't see any of those trees. I see 2 of them. So, in the green, green, and you're going to have school buses there, whether that gives off carbon and all, what have you. Do you see about possibly planting more trees so that, because I don't see it here, and I'm just asking. I see that you took them out, but I don't see where you're putting them in.
Yeah, we will absolutely put more trees in those areas that comply with landscaping ordinance during land development. So during the land development process, we will be going through those, and those are some of the questions that your township consultants have already brought up. But yes, you're correct. There are some trees in that area there. There's actually quite a grade difference. That area was kind of stockpiled a little bit, so it's quite higher that we have to knock down in order for our, to make it level and to make the new addition fit there. So yes, we will absolutely be providing landscaping in that area.
Any other board questions? I had 2 real quick. Mike, approximately how large is the new addition, square foot wise? Do you know?
Yeah. Says it in there. Gonna make me old.
I think Matt's going to be able to answer that for you, Patrick, when we get back to Matt.
Okay. That's fine. Secondly, just there's a quick difference between A7 and A5. I think I know the answer. On A7, you're showing a baseball field and a rectangular area back there, and on A5, you're showing multi-purpose field. Are you just labeling that so that basically the soccer field and the baseball field would overlap back there?
Yes,
Okay.
You'll notice slight differences. Yeah, in terms of the playground, we're still working out that playground configuration. But yes, that same field does still exist on A7. The rectangle that you're referring to is shown on A7. It's just in the green.
Right.
But the baseball field is not shown. It can be used multiple different ways at this point. Yeah.
But that was still proposed to be grass in that area.
Yes, that is all to be grass.
And then lastly, perhaps, I'm not sure if it's for Mike or for someone else, you had mentioned signal retiming at the intersection of Sweetsford. If the board is inclined to grant the application, would the applicant accept as a condition of approval that signal retiming?
Yes, I believe, to the extent required by the project, if at the end of the traffic study, that's part of land development in my perspective. But
Yeah, so that's what I'm suggesting. If it's required, you would agree to do their signal retiming?
We would accept that.
Yeah, okay. And then maybe it's just better for Matt to answer the other questions then.
Any other questions for Mike? Can I recall Matt?
Yeah, I just want to confirm what he said, which is that all the buses would be on that loop, so that all the buses will be in that loop.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Yeah, good, thanks.
So just briefly call Matt again. Matt, you are still sworn. And you heard a couple of the questions from the board and from the solicitor?
Yes, so one of the questions was in regards to building insulation. So as part of the project, we'll be making all of the building comply with current codes and current energy codes. Part of that includes a substantial modification to the insulation at the roof level, because that's really where it was in its sort of existing greatest degree of shortcoming relative to R value and such. In terms of solar panels, if you look at the Exhibit A7, which we refer to a lot, on the right-hand side, the new addition, you see that's a roof plan. So what you're seeing is on the existing building, some of the roof screens that screen the mechanical equipment at the existing. On the addition, you see there's a number of sort of horizontal lines running left to right. Those are depicting solar panels. The school district board had elected to proceed with including solar panels in the project from a design standpoint. After bids are received, then they'll make a final determination as to whether solar panels will be included in this project. Just by way of example or information, they did recently also elect to include solar panels in construction for the athletic fields project for the locker room snack bar facility. So it's something that the district is actively considering. Did that answer your questions?
Well, I had a follow-up question on the insulation.
Sure.
Which is, you said you would bring it up to code, which you would have to do anyway for the building. But is it possible to go, there are like LEED certifications of buildings. Can you bring it up to those standards and get the certification?
So there had been discussion relative to LEED certification, and there's a number of positive aspects of this project that already comply with many of the points associated with LEED. So we've completed LEED projects in the past, adaptive reuse, where you're taking a building that was built for a certain use and repurposing it and using it for something else, and maintaining a massive amount of steel, of concrete, floors of concrete. All the panels are precast. There's a great deal of embedded carbon, if you will, or embedded sustainable energy in all of those components. We'll be reutilizing all of that. This doesn't have some of the benefits from LEED point scorecard standards of, say, being in a dense neighborhood to achieve community connectivity credits, et cetera, et cetera. So we had reviewed that with the district. We're not going to be pursuing LEED certification on this project, but we are making massive amounts of modifications to the structure that are aligned with LEED principles. As another, for instance, the mechanical system, which right now is a variable air volume with rooftop units for an office use. There's issues associated with that from acoustics, issues associated with that from a fresh air, outside air standpoint. All of those also relate to LEED credits. So we're going to be replacing those systems with a VRF type system that can incorporate fresh air requirements. That can allow us to get a proper acoustics and such. So there's a lot of LEED-based philosophy, but we're not pursuing LEED accreditation or certification.
Sure, no, I understand that when you have existing walls, there are only so many things you can, in existing framework, you can only do so much with it. Are you planning to replace the windows, and if so, what kind of standards will you use for the new windows?
So the intention is to reutilize most of the existing ribbon windows. It dates from the 90s, so from a solar heat gain coefficient standpoint, from insulation standpoint, they're not bad performing. They're tinted more than what you might see today, so there's sort of a darkness to them. Except that when you think about a typical school is going to have punch windows. It's going to have much less daylighting opportunity. So these classrooms, we had an open house the week before last, and there was a public open house, but prior to that there was a teaching staff open house. And the teachers were pretty excited about being in a space with so much daylight. But the intention is to preserve those windows. Again, thinking about sustainability.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. And in regard to Mr. McKenna's question on square footage, essentially the aggregate area of the additions. So whenever I say the aggregate area, those renderings showed some limited additions on the north side of the building, essentially to square off the envelope and make it more usable for large classrooms that are 30 by 30 rather than offices that are 10 by 10. So the aggregate area of the additions, most of that is the northwest addition for the gymnasium and auditorium uses, is a little over 14,000 square feet. And that's square footage aggregate, so it's not footprint, because that the northern infill is 3 stories, obviously, so, or maybe not obviously, but. Are there any other architectural questions I can respond to?
Hi there, sorry. I don't know if it's architectural or not, but I know the building's 3 stories. Wait a minute, you guys swapped around. But the gentleman talked about ADA for the parking and all of that. Is there a elevator in that building that the children will be able to use, and for children who are?
There's 2 existing elevators. One is a typical passenger elevator. The other is a larger freight elevator, which is good for freight usage, good for passenger usage, good for emergency usage. And those elevators will be accessible to students and staff. We're also, if you visit the building today, you notice there's sort of several steps up and then a ramp off to the side. Because of the new bus circle and the canopy associated with it, that all is being regraded, so it'll be much more welcoming, sort of flush entry from an accessible standpoint. There won't be steps out front any longer.
Okay, thank you.
Does the district have any other witness?
No other witnesses. We would just ask that our exhibits be accepted into the record, please.
So exhibits A1 through A12 will be admitted.
Thank you.
I do not believe the board is inclined to render a decision tonight. Would do so within the 45 days. Most likely, well, we actually have to ask for a public comment too, but let me finish my thought. Probably be at an upcoming board meeting. We'll let you know when that's going to occur, but I would think it's going to be at one of the meetings in October, because I don't think we can get to November anyway on the 45 days. So having said all of that, is there any member of the public here tonight that wants to offer a comment one way or the other? All right, we'll let the record reflect there was no public comment. Anything further from the board?
No attendees.
There is no one online for the hearing tonight. Anything further from the district?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll conclude the hearing for tonight.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
This is saved for Janet. How you guys doing? I was afraid it would be packed by now.
What are the spots? And she was saying, like, oh, because I don't know. She didn't do the schedule yet. So I don't know whether I just tell her.
I guess I better put this on silent, huh?
Did you have a good weekend? Yes. Good? Good weekend. It's beautiful weather.
That was a good wire clinic with him. We went to a wire clinic together. Have you been to any of his
I
clinics?
did.
Yes.
I'm going tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
What's tomorrow?
It's strokes, but it was strokes when he did wires too, so.
Well, no, it was net.
That was net.
Yeah,
Oh,
net.
the next, was
Because
that
he
good?
incorporated both of
Yes.
those,
Oh,
which was really good. And she was like lamb, and you were like lamb.
Now I'm loving that. I love that right hand side.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
nice.
So, that's good.
I do.
Oh, you do?
But I played it back yet, but I really do like the.
I know. Well, Kim and I maybe should have changed it up partway through the season.
You see us up there?
I know, that's what I said, I like the back of my hair. I
Yeah,
never
it looks
see the back of
nice.
my hair. I
It
know.
looks good.
It looks crimped, but I didn't crimp it.
It looks very,
I have a bald spot.
but you must have washed it. Did you wash it? Oh, yeah, wait a minute. You have to comb your hair back a little bit, Sandy. Yeah, if for whatever reason it didn't come back. No, it's a little bit white under there. Tiny bit
I
white.
didn't know I was going to be on TV.
Yeah.
Do you know they have that powder?
Yeah, I know. I can't see that until now.
Have more.
Do you want to use my brush? I have one. So do you see the people all up there? The one that they were talking about was David Miller. There he is.
Hey,
Hi.
how's doing?
Hello, everybody.
Good, good.
Nice and cold in here.
Everybody have a good summer?
Yeah. How about you?
Good.
I know, summer's almost over.
Yeah, it's almost
Right,
over.
Couple days.
The 21st of September.
Saturday. Oh, Saturday. That's our paddle day. It's the last day of
Oh,
summer.
that's right. What time is that?
12 to 2.
12 to 2.
Yeah.
What?
The beautiful voices.
Paddle party.
Did you know they
Singing
have
at
the
kick-off
unbelievable
parties.
voices?
know.
They have the best voices.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Come if you can. It's a fun day.
I think I signed up.
Yeah, we just play all day.
Right? We had to sign up, didn't we?
Oh, after,
I think I mean, it's nice to know who's
I hope I'm on Team Reach.
Let me look. And then probably are.
Otherwise I forgot, but I thought I was signing up.
Yeah, there is a sign up on
Friday
Team
night.
Reach, I think. Well, and then next week is the other thing on
Yeah, the other
Thursday.
part. Yeah. I signed up for that too.
Yeah, me too. Sounds fun.
and then what do
We just say, see that guy there, David Miller, that's the one who signed us, right?
you, what's the problem?
See him? Right there.
Oh, that's nice.
Concert kickoff social, yes.
Am I signed up?
Let's look. Oh, we got 17 yeses. That's good.
Oh,
Yeah, there you are.
Just get in.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Good, good, good.
Ready for social.
Yeah, that's, somebody put her in that way.
Oh, somebody put her in that way.
Because she calls everybody boom.
We both have the same shoe.
Puma or bear?
I think she
Are they the best?
That's what I figured. She started that years ago because then she doesn't have to remember anybody's name.
And I've washed shoes a couple times.
I figured she did it in school too. She probably did.
Are we supposed to sign in?
I don't know, we just walked in.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Meg.
Brenda,
Are we last?
thank you. Thank you, madam.
Here you go, Jen. More?
Well, Janet Noon, I told her I'd save her spot. She wanted to drive together, but I couldn't.
I have one more left.
Good job. How's Matt doing in Concord this year?
He's doing fine.
Yeah, happy to be there.
He is happy. He's on time. Yeah, he's been grinding. I'm like, I talk to him more when he's driving home from a lesson.
Really?
Because even though he lives at home, I never see him.
Oh, wow.
I never see him. So he's been working a lot.
Good for him.
He's been working, it's good. Because you never know, because weather and this and that.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
very
Oh, yeah.
Weather dependent and.
So many things.
And injuries and this
Oh,
and
yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so you gotta do it when you can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost age.
Are we like the last thing on the agenda? or what?
Practically.
That's what I was afraid of. We're going to be here till midnight.
Yeah. That's the strategy, right? Because we have to go through.
Yes. We have one. He's still yep. He's Concord, and he's, we saw him like once or twice. Yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, he's definitely, he loves doing these things. He is lovely. You can just see the improvement. I remember when we first started, we changes cattle, and we were like,
He was kind of quiet.
I know. You're here, we actually one clinic.
Please correct us.
Just teaching. He is lovely, just teaching and everything.
Yeah.
Pickle, he likes pickle, he likes teaching tennis, he likes teaching kids, he likes teaching adults. Because he never really liked kids. Like he never liked teaching kids because when we go to some of the clubs, he gets more kids. And he would just be really good. He's like, and he'd be like, dude, I can't do this. Like, I tell kids to pick up balls and they're not picking up balls. And the parents are sitting there, watching that. Like, I can't parents kids. So I'm just, So he's like, he goes, it's a great, because no one has control of these kids. No one has them very good to control. Smart, yeah. So yeah, they have fun.
Yes.
But and they know that line.
Yep, there's the boundary. Don't go,
Well,
there's
just
consequences.
know
Yes.
that line, and that's the thing.
That's the critical thing, setting that up early on and being consistent with it.
It's nice to see him grow, you know? He'll be 30. He looks so young.
He does.
30.
think it was like 7 and 8. 7.
I'd like to call to order the September 16th Board of Supervisors meeting. The Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We're going to start with announcements. The conditional use hearing for 83 Chestnut Road LLC that was scheduled for September 4th, 2024 has been postponed to Wednesday, October 9th, 2024 at the request of the participating party. On Tuesday, October 1st at 7 p.m., there will be a stormwater project meeting to update neighbors on the Willis Woodcrest Upper Weedley Road Stormwater Improvement Project. Meeting will be held at the Township building. Township contractor G&B Construction will begin work the week of September 16th on the Krabby Creek Stormwater Infiltration Retrofit Project. Work will be occurring on portions of Laurel Lane, Williams Lane, and Beechwood Roads that will last through the remainder of the year. Township contractor JBI Group will be starting demolition and reconstruction of the Glen Hardy Road Bridge over Trout Creek in late September, and work will last through the end of the year. The Turnpike is finishing up their bridge work and paving, and residential access will be from south on Glen Hardy Road while the bridge is being reconstructed. PECO will begin gas line relocation ahead of the Township's Bear Road Stormwater Project on or around September 22nd. PECO expects gas line work to take approximately 4 weeks depending on weather. Join us for the Township's annual Community Day on October 5th. Volunteers are still needed, and you can sign up by using the Genius link on the Facebook event page and the Community Day page on the Township website. Applications are being accepted for counselors for Winter Rec. Application information can be found on the Township website. There are openings for a member of the Library Board of Trustees and 2 alternate members to the Zoning Hearing Board. Interested applicants should send a letter of interest and a brief resume to Tredyffrin@tredyffrin.org. If you're interested in being a vendor for the Paoli Fire Company Sip and Shop Craft Fair on October 18th, contact them at fundraising@paolifirecompany.org. The Township is looking for 3 volunteers to serve on the Charter Review Committee tasked with reviewing and possibly updating the Home Rule Charter. Please submit a letter of interest and brief resume to Tredyffrin@tredyffrin.org. Now we go to approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any board comments? Any public comments to the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss legal matters. Supervisor liaison reports. Supervisor Humble.
Thank you, Chairman Miller. The Tredyffrin Township Parks and Rec Board met on Wednesday, September the 11th at 7 p.m. in this room. That was last week. In addition to receiving our regular reports from the police report, the Public Works report, and the Parks and Rec report, we also considered old business from Simone Collins regarding updating the Friendship Park Master Plan. We considered at length the work that Simone Collins had done and that they proposed, and the board voted to send the updated master plan to the Board of Supervisors for consideration and possible approval. Part of the updated master plan includes updating playgrounds, repaving the parking lot and adding more spaces, and adding a fenced-in dog park at Friendship Park. So others may be interested in looking at that. It will be in the minutes. It's probably already posted on the Township's website. And the board will meet again on Wednesday, October the 9th, 2024. Additionally, at the meeting, we did have a brief introduction to some Chesterbrook residents who would like to add a community garden to one of the parks in the township. They're very open to it so far, but they are relatively new residents to Chesterbrook, but in the two communities they have lived in before this, they have very successfully helped install for nonprofits community gardens that were a tremendous success. So we're interested to hear more about it. They will be presenting at this October 9th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Humble. Supervisor Holt.
The Historical Commission met on September 12th. They are fresh off a very successful history walking tour at the Great Valley Baptist Church, and they are looking forward to manning a booth at the upcoming Community Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Holt. Supervisor Gussie.
I do not have a report tonight.
Thank you. Supervisor Wysocki.
I do not have a report tonight.
Thank you. Supervisor Bhaskar.
So I would like to start by making a motion, to reappoint Rob Rose to the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
Any comments? Public comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Rob, by the way, for volunteering to do this.
Moving on to my report. The Library Board of Trustees met on Thursday, August 22nd, and Abby Sengel met the board. She's the new head librarian of Paoli Library, replacing Beverly Michaels, who retired. And there are currently 2 vacancies on the Library Board of Trustees, as was announced by Supervisor Miller earlier. And also, as Helen Yao has opted not to seek reappointment to the Library Board of Trustees, there is a vacancy there, and we'd like to thank Helen for her years of service. But please email us at tredyffrin@tredyffrin.org if you'd like to step up and serve on the Library Board of Trustees. Now, in order to sort of be a little bit more efficient, the Library Board has organized itself into small subcommittees that then make recommendations to the board as a whole, and that organization is coming together well. The Friends of Tredyffrin Public Library continues to be very active. There was some background discussion, albeit with no recommendation, as to whether the Friends of Tredyffrin Public Library and the Friends of Paoli Library should be merged into one Friends organization. And we have 2 events coming up soon. The annual Pride in the Park event will be held on September 29th, 2 to 4 p.m. at Stratford Park. And the Library Foundation Mini Golf Classic will be held Friday, November 1st and Saturday, November 2nd. There will be 18 holes of mini golf at the Stratford Library and 2 holes at Paoli Library. Now, in the past, they had golf classics at various golf courses in the area, but this time they decided to organize mini golf within the libraries itself. So it should be fun. Please do join us. And the next meeting of the library board is Thursday next week, September 26th. The Environmental Advisory Council met on Tuesday, August 27th, and we discussed that a representative of the Pennsylvania Game Commission visiting Krabby Creek Park and discussing whether it might provide habitat for the Protonothere warbler, which is a native songbird whose numbers are declining. And he advised us to continue efforts to keep invasive plant species under control. Also, the EAC decided that, there was supposed to be a Roots Festival in the fall. It got postponed to the spring. They decided that they were not going to do that. They were all stretched way too thin. And they're going to do outreach more outreach at existing events like the Community Day and the YMCA's Earth Day and so on. The next meeting of the Environmental Advisory Council is Tuesday next week, September 24th. Thank you, Chair Miller.
Thank you, Supervisor Bhaskar. Supervisor Johnston Pugh.
I have no reports.
Thank you very much. The next item, motion to approve the 2025 minimum municipal obligations for police and non-uniform pensions. Mr. DeRocca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight, we're looking for approval of the 2025 MMOs. The non-uniform MMO for 2025 is $465,221. The police pension is $1,278,105. I will note that that is the smoothing number. We've been utilizing, actually in the budget, somewhere between the market number and the smoothing number. So the budget for 2024 was $1.75 million. We'll keep that the same budget for 2025, which just helps the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeRocca. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any board comments or questions? Public comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Motion to approve a financial security agreement for Mental Road LLC for 105 Vincent Road. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board may recall that the Planning Commission some time ago granted, actually I want to say it's around March of this year, final land development for the 3-lot subdivision on 105 Vincent Road. The board approved some development agreements, specifically the financial security agreement, the stormwater O&M agreement, and financial security developers agreement for the next item that you'll see, which was to Ropal. Ropal Company was the developer. Subsequent to the approval and posting of financial security, they then went to settlement with Minal Road LLC, so they're selling the approvals. The development agreement and the stormwater O&M agreement automatically pass, but the financial security has to be reposted by somebody new, the new owner. So they are seeking to have their financial security in the form of a letter of credit. The next item will actually be to release the cash escrow that was posted by Ropal. So we're having essentially one developer and one financial security and type of security replacing the other. So that is what is currently before you. We actually do have the signed document as well as the original letter of credit with the township.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any comments from the board or questions? I had a question. Do we check the financial capacity of the guarantor or the bank that's providing, or the mortgage company that's providing the letter of credit?
We don't do a deep dive into them typically. In other words, not to my knowledge, we usually just look and check and see if they're a verified financial institution in Pennsylvania.
I did the same thing, and they are, but
yeah.
I was wondering if we did any more than that.
Not typically, no.
Have we used these guys before?
I don't recall off the top of my head that we have. Doesn't mean we haven't, but so many things have come through, I just don't remember.
Any public comment or questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Motion to approve the final escrow release for 105 Vincent Road, Ropal Company, Inc. Mr. McKenna. This is a continuation of what we just did.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is basically, now that you have approved the financial security for the new developer, this would be to release the cash escrow so that it could be returned to
Ropal, who no longer owns the company. I would ask that any motion, however, to approve the final escrow release be contingent upon reimbursement to the township of any outstanding professional service reviews through September 3rd, 2024. We think that there's probably some invoicing out there that needs to be paid, so before we send the escrow back, we'd like to be paid for the township.
That makes sense. So with that amendment, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All right, any comments from the board or questions? Public comments or questions?
I do got a question. Do you have an idea of how much they may owe the township? Do you have a ballpark figure?
No, I don't think Patricia had
We don't have
gotten
it's not significant.
No,
Most
it's
of the
not.
things were done prior, and then I haven't started the actual construction yet, but we'll check on that. It's not a big number.
I mean, the escrow is like $300,000, so they can't owe us anything close to that.
No, I think it's...
Just to give us some scale of this, yeah.
I think it's only several $1,000s, like, but I don't know the exact number.
Any public comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the 2024 sodium chloride bids through the Chester County Consortium. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We participate in a consortium with a bunch of municipalities throughout the county. West Bradford runs it. They put out the bid every year. This year, the low bid was Eastern Salt Company for sodium chloride at $70.20 per ton, which is a little over $4 a ton cheaper than it was last year. So that's the main salt that we purchase, so that has the biggest impact. So won't have an impact on our 2025 budget, which is a good thing. So happy to answer any other questions.
Do I hear a motion? So moved. Do I hear a second?
So moved. Second.
Any board comments or questions? Public comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve a payment agreement with Lloyden Lobo and Nicole Cordero. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an agreement that I've been working on with the solicitor and the homeowners of 6668 Central Avenue. If you recall, we had a oil spill there earlier this year, and so they're responsible for repaying the township the funds that we spent to stop the oil from getting in the creek and cleaning everything up. So they've signed the agreement, they just need the board's approval, and they've already started, they've been paying under the agreement before it was approved, so happy to answer questions.
And we're getting fully reimbursed as a result of this?
Correct. It's a little, I think it's a few dollars under 17,000, so it'll take some time to repay it, but this just outlines in case they stop repaying, we're protected.
Yeah, thank you. Do we hear a motion? Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any board comments or questions?
Joe, can you describe a little more on the impact of the oil spill may have had on the community and the next door neighbors, or just more about the event itself, please?
As I understand it, they had hired a contractor to remove and demo the house that they own to, I believe that it's a rental property for them. The contractor, as I understand it, was the one who took the oil tank out and instead of disposing it properly, decided to just dump it in the yard. And then it was during a period of time where we had excessive rain, so that immediately began to leach out of the yard, down the sidewalk, into the street. As soon as we became aware of it, we called Lewis Environmental, had them come out. Paoli Fire Company came out and helped actually quicker than anybody. They essentially helped stop the oil from getting into the stream, and so we called DEP, notified them, and then luckily, there was a lot of rain, so as DEP said, the solution to pollution is dilution, and so luckily there was no larger impact that day.
So it sounds like emergency response occurred. I'm sure neighbors were freaked out by having oil spill in their neighborhood. One thing I noticed in this agreement is that there was no reimbursement for legal expenses incurred by the township, that there's no interest being charged for the repayment of the $17,000 over 3 years. And we're also agreeing to waive going to court to obtain any potential fines and penalties for their negligent acts. So I'm not sure this is a full and complete reimbursement.
So you're correct in that aspect. So under the MS4 program, we are responsible for responding. So there was a responsibility on our part, as unfortunate as that is. And then just working through it with Mr. McKenna and his office, as well as the owners, we felt like this was the easiest path forward for everybody involved.
And these are residents in the township that own the property, right?
Correct. I do believe they are residents.
And they didn't provide us with a lien as a guarantee for payment or anything like that on the property or on their own property?
On their own property?
On their own property or this rental property that they own, right?
Any other questions from the public? Any board? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Or one opposition, okay. Two opposition. You opposed? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, okay, 5-2. Thank you. Motion to authorize staff to work with solicitor to finalize an agreement for building code review and inspection services from Barry, Isaac and Associates. Ms. McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, members of the board. So recently, our building inspector did retire. We have tried to find a replacement, putting out job ads in various publications and trade that do building codes, have not been able to fill the position. We are currently using an engineering firm that we work with for the subdivision and land development process. They did have some staff availability. It is kind of a hard field, I would say. There's not a lot of building inspectors in Pennsylvania. We have been keeping up the best that we can, but really, their inspections were limited to only 3 days a week, so we were falling a little bit behind. There was some lag time for inspections, so we are asking the board to authorize going with a full-time third party, Barry Isaac. So I'm asking for a motion. We do have the agreement that was provided. It did go through the solicitor's office. Barry Isaac did agree to the changes that they had in their standard agreement, so I'm asking for approval for that.
Thank you. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any board questions or comments?
I do got a question. Aaron, so you're saying we've put out to find someone to do the building and we cannot get anyone?
That's correct. So we've had, basically within a couple days of his retirement, we put out an ad. We've put it in, I think, Indeed. There's a trade organization that building inspectors are a part of. We've had it up on their website for months. We had a couple interviews. One was potentially okay. We actually offered him a position, but he declined it. So yeah, we really have not had, and there's certain qualifications that that we would like to see, that you're required to have certain, certifications. It's just, it's a problem throughout the state of Pennsylvania. A lot of municipalities are, having trouble filling these type of positions. In a way, we're not unique with not being able to hire someone. We've heard from a lot of other municipalities with the same issues, and a lot of firms are going with the third party because they can kind of pool their resource together. And I think a lot of building inspectors these days are going to the third parties, I guess, instead of working for municipalities directly.
Yeah, I attend a number of manager meetings monthly within Chester County and regionally. That it's just there are not enough across the entire Commonwealth in this kind of field of work. Many are retiring out, and the third parties are picking up people that are still around. So it's becoming virtually very impossible to find this. So we're great that able to secure this firm to do the work for us in a more lively fashion than we have currently. So it's just currently that's just the market. It's very difficult.
Thank you.
And Aaron, is anyone on our staff actually studying to get some certifications?
Not at this time. I did get my BCO, I think shortly before our inspector left, so that has actually made it, or I guess I have the ability to sign off on permits, but I don't have the ability to review plans or do inspections. So at this point, we don't have anyone that was willing to take those certification classes.
But I just want to thank you for at least getting the start of that, so that's helped us quite a bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I also wanted to thank, I put it in my memo, but Robert, McKenzie, and Rhea here at the Township have really chipped in, and we had to learn a lot in the last 2 months, and just even to keep it going where we are today has taken a lot of effort on the staff's part.
Yeah, no, thank you. Any public comments or questions?
Excuse me, Chairman Miller. This is an incredibly important function for our township government. We want to make sure it works well. This is often how a lot of our residents interact with the township government, so we want to do it right. So my question is, what do we have in place to monitor the performance of this third-party contractor and to make sure that any incidents, complaints, or issues that residents have are heard by the township itself? Are there going to be surveys? Or there's just, what's the plan for setting some controls in place?
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought of surveys. The township, we're still going to be involved in the process. Obviously, I'm going to have a close relationship with the third party. This third party, Barry Isett, they have become code inspectors in other local townships. Radnor, they do all the code inspections and plan reviews for them. So they do say that they will be invested in the township, unlike, some other third parties. Even before the in-house inspector retired, we tried to get some additional third-party help just because he was a little bit overwhelmed, with the amount of permits and doing it by himself. And we just felt with the meetings that we did have with Barry Isett, it did seem like they hold themselves to a higher standard, and that really will be a function of me requiring them to do that through their tenure.
The first year of a contract is so important. I would just encourage a lot of following up with residents, with contractors, folks who've experienced, interacted with these folks, and making sure that we want to get this relationship off right from the get-go. So, thank you.
Any comments from the public? Sure, come up to the microphone if you want to.
When did the inspector retire?
Please go up to the microphone.
When did the inspector retire? My name is Jennifer Dinan. I just wanted to know when the inspector retired.
It was the end of June.
Hi, Kevin Waldron, Tredyffrin, Croton Road. When did he tell you he was going to retire? Because he stood in my yard and told me that he had told the township several years ago of his upcoming intention to retire, and that he had wanted to retire fully 1 year ago. And I want to know how it is we let it get to this point. As a resident of the township, I'm I'm being kidnapped by the system here, not getting our property approved, and I've been told it's 19 days. And if we have one inspector, why didn't we hire two? Why didn't we hire three from the outside so that it never got to this point?
So, a couple questions there. So, yes, we were aware that Mike was on the path to retirement. His actual retirement was sudden.
How sudden could it be when he told you guys 2 years ago he intended to leave, and a year ago that he also told me? And you're shaking your head no, then he lied to me, which I find hard to believe.
He didn't tell me that he was retiring.
He said he had the retirement letter on his desk for over a year.
Sir, you're gonna have to, you've asked a question, sir. Please don't talk over, okay?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I mean, if he had immediate plans, he was not telling us that. We were aware that it was on the path to retirement, and like I said, we had tried to find other services, even when he was here, to have people do plan reviews and inspections. There just is not, I was reaching out to firms and they were like, I'm sorry, we're too busy, we can't take on additional clients. So it's not for lack of trying on our part. We did get, at that time, we did get someone to come in and do some inspections 1 day a week, which was the Remington and Burdick, the same firm we used after he left. Their firm, again, they have some staff, they're actually retired, that they came back in order to help do these reviews. Their staffing only allowed for 3 days a week. That's the only staff that they had and the only availability that they had for that staff. So that's why we're asking to go to a party that can do inspections 5 days a week. So some of that backlog is because we have limited inspection availability.
So you said you were trying to find a replacement in the form of an individual. Why did that one person you offered the job to turn it down, did he or she say?
Yeah, they did tell us. They actually work for the city of Philadelphia, and they didn't want to leave Philadelphia.
Because as someone that was forced to hire to run an office for 20 years, a 50-person office, more often than not, I found when someone turned me down, it's because we weren't paying enough. Someone here used the word about the market is simply not doing it. Well, the market is potentially asking for more money than what we're willing to pay. And we as residents are the ones that are dealing with this because, you know, projects are just stuck. Because if something gets done and then you have to wait 19 days to get it inspected, it's costing everybody. It's costing the homeowner, it's costing the builder, you know.
That's the exact reason we need to go with this third party.
Yeah, I just don't know how it is that it got to this point in the first place. If people were minding their jobs, it wouldn't have happened. Someone would have been on it faster. If you knew that he was on his path, why weren't we looking into this a year ago then to hire somebody?
Well, we did hire a support service to help him during that. Again, I was not aware. He had never given us a time frame for retirement.
All right. Not particularly happy with the answers, but thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Any other public comments or questions?
In relation to what this gentleman just said, I live on Laurel Lane in Wayne. I'm a local builder. I do a lot of, Matthew Morgan. I do a lot of work in the township. I probably do 60, 70% of my work is within Tredyffrin Township. I live in Tredyffrin Township. I made it my home. I've made a business working in the township, and it's really affected my business, having to wait 2 weeks for scheduling of inspections. I mean, when I filled out my permit application, it says 48 to 72 hours to get, you know, my inspections. And to keep things moving along when we're destroying someone's house, when I call on a Monday and I can't get an inspection for 14, 15 business days, it's not only a serious problem for me, but it's a serious problem for, you know, clients who are looking to get back into their home. It's costing them more money. You know, they're living outside their house. It's a problem. So I just wanted to come here to see what the plan was. I've worked with the new third-party inspection, but, you know, like it was mentioned, he's a retired gentleman. He's back. He's working a few days a week. They have him running all over the place. He stops at your job for 10 minutes, and he's out the door at the next one. And I had to wait 2 weeks for that. And I'm writing these big checks to Tredyffrin Township for these inspections, and it's slowing me up. It's costing me money. It's costing my clients money. It's costing residents in the township money. So that's the only reason I'm here. I'd rather be at home having a beer, getting ready for the Eagles game, but I'm here because I wanted my voice to be heard.
Well, thank you, sir. I mean, we understand this is an issue. We did not know that this retirement was going to happen until the day it happened.
I think
and that's why we're addressing
it. It's pretty frustrating.
That's why we're addressing it today. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the motion on the table right now is to hire a third party, which will give us plenty of capacity to solve the problem. I mean, that's what we're trying to do right now. So I can't tell you, I mean, you've heard what happened, how we got to here. We are addressing it in like a few minutes when we take a vote. We're going to address it.
Yeah, and then, just a year ago, there was 2 full-time inspectors in Tredyffrin. It ran like a well-oiled machine, and it has not been like that in the last 6-12 months. I mean, the township is completely, it's not run the same, it feels like. It's hard to get things done.
Thanks for the feedback. I mean,
Thank you.
We're going to address it in a few minutes.
Aaron, can I ask you a question? If we approve this third-party company, and they can do 5 days a week, I guess they have 2 or 3, to go with what this gentleman was talking about, do you have an idea how long it would take us to get back on track so that residents are not out of their houses or money is being spent? And unfortunately, the constituents here are having these issues. Do you have an idea if we get, say, 2 or 3 people, how long will it take us to get back on track? Or I know you can't say exactly, but you know.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, if you were to call if Matt would call for an inspection today, we could do it Tuesday the 24th. So next Tuesday. We have talked to this third party, and in cases where, we're starting to see a backup, they have the ability to send multiple inspectors. So if, as we're taking the list of requests, if we're seeing, hey, we're really backing up, we're a week away, definitely not going to get to the 2 weeks again. But they can send, right now we're looking at, scheduling 12 inspections per day. If we got to a point where, we need to have 20 on next Tuesday because we've just got a large increase, they can send a second inspector to clear that. So there really won't be, once we get this going, even having, I already anticipated the approval in a way. I have inspections scheduled for Friday with them. Right now, we don't have Friday inspections. So I just wanted to make sure that we do clear this as quickly as we can, and we go back to the, quick response that we've always had. We just unfortunately couldn't do it with our previous firm.
Thank you.
Any other public comments or questions? Board comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to consider the settlement agreement for the Picket Post land use appeal. Mr. McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will recall last month's meeting, a proposed draft settlement agreement was provided to the board for their feedback. This case involves a land use appeal by the Picket Post Swim Club from a decision of the Tredyffrin Township Zoning Hearing Board that granted certain relief subject to certain conditions, which Picket Post has appealed to the Court of Common Pleas. The parties, being the Zoning Hearing Board and Picket Post principally, were the authors of the settlement agreement. I had talked to the board, and since we had minimal participation at the Zoning Hearing Board level, the board asked for us to sort of monitor the situation, but you asked to be a party, so we intervened in the appeal because you wanted to have a say in any resolution that may be brought forth. So that is what we began the discussion with last month. We heard from residents. This month, the Picket Post Council has asked to provide you with their position on how they reach some of those terms. In addition, the board asked certain questions that I certainly was not able to answer, Aaron was not able to answer, so Picket Post would like to come and try to address some of those questions as well as answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you. Is the Picket Post attorney? Yeah, thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Neil Hilkert. My partner Lita Bonner and I are counsel to Picket Post. We appreciate the board's opportunity to come this evening and present Picket Post's position regarding some of the questions that you may have regarding the proposed settlement agreement. As you may recall, there was a decision made by the Zoning Hearing Board back in May of 2024. That decision was appealed to the Court of Common Pleas of Chester County, as Mr. McKenna indicated. However, in the last several months, Picket Post, in good faith, has attempted to enter into a settlement agreement, initially with the Zoning Hearing Board. As we were completing that settlement agreement, we expected the Zoning Hearing Board to respond to us. We understand that that decision ultimately went to the Board of Supervisors. We do appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to come here this evening and present our position regarding the settlement agreement, and most importantly, to answer any questions that the board may have regarding certain aspects and issues surrounding the settlement agreement. So with the board's permission, this evening, the board from Picket Post is here to answer any questions. There also are a number of residents, citizens of Tredyffrin Township, who also happen to be members of the club here as well in support of the settlement agreement. And again, with the permission of the board, we'd respectfully request that Ms. Bonner introduce the first presenter.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. With your permission, we'd like to bring up the board. Before we do that, I would like to present a letter from one of the Picket Post members who is a Tredyffrin resident who could not be here this evening, who wanted her voice to be heard. May I approach the letter?
Lita, see if you can get the red light to come on your microphone.
The other one off, though, if you haven't both.
Is that better? Oh. Okay. With that, I'd like to ask Jake Zielinski of Picket Post Board to please come up and make his remarks.
If it pleases the board, the members of the board will come forward to the table if that's acceptable. Microphone? Very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the members of the board. My name is Jake Zielinski. I'm the current vice president of Picket Post and the immediate past president of Picket Post. Before I get started, I wanted to thank the Board of Supervisors for allowing me to represent Picket Post at this meeting. And I'd also like to thank the many members that showed up here tonight to support our little slice of heaven here in Tredyffrin Township. If I can please ask, if you're a current member of Picket Post, can you please stand? Also, if you are a resident of Chesterbrook or live in Tredyffrin Township, can you please raise your hand? Thank you, guys. You can sit. I grew up in Wayne. I've worked in Chesterbrook. My grandmother lived in Chesterbrook for over 20 years. I know and I understand this community. This club has allowed me to see old friends and meet a ton of new ones. 2.5 years ago, though, my wife and I moved to Westchester. I still decide to commute to Picket Post, even though there are a few competitor clubs that I drive by on a daily basis because of what the community is that it provides. Picket Post was built in 1980, and since then, a lot has changed in this township, and a lot has changed with our club. We're a nonprofit that aims to bring family fun and joy to the main line. We're also one of the only clubs in the state to offer platform tennis and not be considered a country club. Platform tennis is what we're here to talk about tonight. The slang word for platform tennis is paddle. From here on out, if you hear me refer to paddle, please know that the two are interchangeable. Having a non-country club offer paddle is a huge advantage, but also a double-edged sword. We offer membership opportunities that country clubs can't even fathom, but we're also judged and compared against those same country clubs. We're so affordable, yet also we provide gorgeous and modern facilities with a distinct nod to the history of the main line. Our typical member is the same people that you see sitting here in this room today. Moms and dads who want a family fun place to bring their kids, retirees enjoying a mix of pool and racket sports, even recent college graduates and young professionals who want to get some exercise and socialize here in the community. We serve all shapes and sizes at our club, and that membership is our secret sauce. Our club currently serves over 400 families and close to 1,000 members. But for the purposes of the discussion tonight, we'll be focusing on the paddle membership in that population. Over 30% of our club is there for paddle. We have the ability to drive more revenue than a normal swim club because of our unique offering of paddle. We currently sit in a solid financial position with funds for operation, improvements, and rainy day. With that being said, I don't think those buckets can stay full if we lose the ability to operate paddle at Picket Post. Paddle came to this area over 20 years ago, and being one of the only clubs to offer these amenities at a non-country club pricing, it gave us a chance to build membership quickly. The more the sport caught on, the more our membership grew. Our members compete in leagues against other local clubs in this area, to the likes of Aronimink, Marion, Martins Dam, St. David's, Waynesboro, among many more. The leagues are the lifeblood of our paddle community. I want to repeat that. The leagues that we participate in are what allow us to have a paddle program at Picket Post. That brings us to the crux of the issue that we have here tonight. I'd like to put this as clear as possible. Our club might not survive if we can't operate a paddle program that participates in these leagues. Yes, we still have a pool there, but without the revenue of paddle, the future would be in jeopardy. Our league matches are played at night. Most of our members are working class that work usual 9 to 5s. For that reason, the league has to play in the evening. And we have very limited say in what the league parameters are, as there's 1,500 players across this area that participate in that league. The neighbors behind us are upset with the visibility of our lights and the time of night we have them on until, and we've worked to accommodate some of those requests by adding timers onto our lights, committing to plant higher and fuller vegetation, and to put up light guards that block commercial light glare. The original trees that we took down that were larger were taken down so that we could construct a 4th paddle court. And the plan was from the beginning that we were going to replace those trees, which was part of the plan that we put in front of the zoning hearing board. The current trees that stand there are about 8 to 10 feet tall. We heard from our landscaper that he assures us these trees are maturing and growing well, and trying to take these down and replace them with trees around the same size is a big mistake. With that being said, we've made a lot of these accommodations because we have the need for our courts to remain open until 10 p.m. at night. 2 of these courts do not impact the neighboring community as much with noise or light as the Painters Lane residents previously testified to in the zoning hearing board meetings. These accommodations for our nonprofit, volunteer-run board of directors, community-driven club really need to be put into place for us to have a viable future here in Tredyffrin Township. Again, to make this crystal clear, preventing the club from participation in these leagues by rolling back the hours would essentially be a death sentence for us. Furthermore, if we fast forward the clock 5 to 10 years and this land is owned by a developer who tries to build more houses, I'd like it on the record that this was the first domino to fall in making that happen. I want to thank you again for allowing me to speak. I hope my words will help you lead in support of the Picket Post Club. With me tonight, I have a few of my fellow board members, Rich, Andrew, and Michelle, and our club manager, Phyllis, and I and they would be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. So, right now, the only question I think that's up in the air is the hours on Wednesdays and Thursday nights. I think you had asked for to have it open until 10, and we pushed back. I think the last discussion, you guys weren't here, obviously.
Correct.
The last discussion was a pushback to do it at 9, start at 9 o'clock or end at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Well, every night. So
No, not every night. That's not what we talked about.
No. Okay, so yeah, 9 o'clock on just Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, that was the discussion.
Yeah, so we would need 10 o'clock on those nights because that's when the league operates.
The league doesn't operate on the weekends?
That's correct.
So what nights that's not what we heard last time. When does the league operate?
Well, we weren't invited to the last one, so we weren't here to
Yeah, that's
tell
right.
you
I'm just
anything.
asking now.
Yeah, Wednesdays and Thursday nights are the league nights.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for this guy? No? All right.
So I understand.
Yes, sir.
I understand that the trees were taken down without permission, is that right?
No, that's incorrect. As part of the zoning hearing board plans to build and construct the new court that were approved It was the intention that those trees would be coming out and new ones were to be planted, and they approved those plans.
And you said the current trees there are 8 to 10 feet tall?
Correct. We planted them about a year and change ago at about 6 feet, and they've grown to in between 8 to 10 feet, depending on which tree you're looking at.
So to what extent do the houses in the neighborhood, to what extent are they shaded by is the light from the court shaded by these trees?
Yep, so we have that tree line which does not shade from any light, but along the residents that are behind us, they have full-grown mature trees on their own property that do block that.
No, I'm talking about the lights from your court.
Correct.
So you're saying...
They currently do not block
You're making a statement now that the lights from your court do not go onto the houses that are adjacent to the courts?
That is correct. They do not shine on those houses. You can see them if you look out of a window, but they do not shine on those houses.
Okay, I mean, sorry, that's not quite what we heard last month, I think, from some of the residents, but, if there's any of the residents out here, they'll have a chance to speak.
And
the other question is, what is there in the agreement that if one of the trees dies or that you just let it die? And, let's just say, you're a good guy, but let's say that, someone comes in after you and lets the trees die. What assurance is there that the trees or shading will be replaced by equivalent trees or shading?
yeah, I don't believe there is any language to that, and we would not oppose any of that language to be added, that if one of the part of the vegetation dies, that we would replace it. But I don't believe there is anything in there right now.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just clarify one thing real quick, just for the record?
Sure.
So when you built the fourth court, which is sort of how this whole thing got started,
correct,
did you have proper building permits to build that?
We did not, no.
Okay. All right, so
we did have the proper variances. The contractor did build it 4 feet away from where he was supposed to, which would not have changed the lighting or anything as part of those courts the way it sits today. 4 feet left or 4 feet right, not going to make a difference in lighting.
I understand that, but I just want to clear.
But that did, I mean, you had to take, maybe I'm crazy, but you had to take out a bunch of trees in order
Right, which was
to move
approved
that.
by the zoning hearing board, correct.
Excuse me?
Which was approved by the zoning hearing board.
But you never got a building permit, right?
Correct, the contractor did not get the building permit,
Okay.
correct.
So, and he built it, you just said he built it, but mature trees might have made a difference and still would have made a difference today, and it's not with respect to making this decision, I just want to get the facts straight.
Sure.
So if you had complete, I'm sure, were they arborvitae, they grow, you could grow them right here today, and you'd get 10 feet almost immediately.
Right, that's
And
what we have in right now, correct.
They would have done the job, that's all I'm saying.
That's what's in there right now, is arborvitae. That's what we replanted in there.
Right, but when was that? You said a year ago?
About a year ago, when we were doing construction of the court, correct.
So, but I heard you, and that's great,
Yep.
and thank you. No, that's really good. Doesn't replace the ones you took out yet, but
Correct.
will, probably. But you just said, and maybe I misheard you, that you said that the light doesn't go onto the houses
That is correct.
because, or is it blocked by the existing trees?
Twofold. One, the lights are downward facing.
Right, that's
So they
good.
can't
That's good.
reach, they don't face the actual.
Of course not.
Yeah.
They shouldn't.
So the glare from those lights does not have enough to reach back there. Now, again, if you're standing on a deck or a patio or looking out your window, it's going to be like looking at a street light. You're going to be able to see it, but the light does not shine on their property. And yes, they have a full hill worth of mature trees on their property that are in between their residences and our court.
So, and I'm just going to, just to get all the facts here.
Sure.
Is it just a question of the lighting? Or as far as, I don't, or is there noise involved going
Yeah,
on?
so again, I apologize for not being here at the last meeting since we didn't have notice, but as far as my knowledge goes, is that the only issue with the sticking point right now is the light. I think we all agree on everything else, but I could be wrong.
One other question. I know I don't play paddle, but during the leagues, when people play paddle, are they drinking beer? Is there alcohol there as part of the festivities or the games?
Yeah, so we have a paddle hut, so after the time, there's food ordered, so it could be hoagies, meatballs, whatever pizza may be, and people are welcome to bring their own drinks if they'd like. We do not supply any alcohol to anybody.
No, but in practice, when you have these leagues, do people bring their own alcohol? Is it common for people to consume alcohol while they're playing the games?
Yeah, so some do and some don't, and again, we're different because, again, most of the other teams that are in our league are country clubs. So when you walk into their establishment, they have a full operating bar that's going on there. So us being a little bit different, correct. If somebody would like to bring a few beverages, they are welcome to do that. But we do not serve it.
Can I ask you a question?
And that's not while we're playing, that's after everything's done.
All right, so if I'm hearing everything right, you built a court that did not have a building permit, but you cleared with the zoning. You tore out trees that would have blocked everything, and you put in some trees that are lower. So, and you want to stay open till 10 o'clock on Wednesdays and Thursdays because that's when the league plays.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if we have gotten complaints or concerns that the lights are shining and originally it was supposed to be 9 and now it's going to 10, would it harm picket posts, because no, you are not a country club, to purchase taller trees and put them where folks are complaining that the lights are shining so that 2/3 of this will be over with and you don't have to worry about, at that point it may help because I was here last month, you weren't, I'm sorry that you didn't know, but I heard from folks saying that, and seen pictures, that there is a light and it is shining in someone's house in their back, that they're sitting there and the light's coming through, they're looking at the TV and they see a light. Now, I can't say for sure because I don't know. I can only look at what I've seen. But it seems like a lot of this has to do with lights.
Mm-hmm.
So would it not make sense, if you want to do this, to go buy the bigger trees, which might cost you a couple grand, and put them where so that the light cannot shoot? Because the one thing that I see that the problem is, yes, you got okay from the zoning, but you didn't get the building permit.
Correct.
And if you'd have got the building permit and put it where originally, maybe we wouldn't be going through
Sure.
trees and lights and lights and trees.
Sure.
So I'm just asking that question.
Sure, be glad to answer for you.
Could you do that, and that may solve maybe 2/3 of this argument that's going on?
Recording in progress.
So I'll let Phyllis answer the bulk of this. I will tell you that the lights above the courts are about 35 feet off the ground. So sourcing that big of multiple trees and planting them is almost impossible. I think you actually got some quotes. It is impossible. So we talked to our landscaper, who is the same landscaper that handles the Painter's Lane Chesterbrook, Bryn Mawr Landscaping. He was the one who came out, planted the trees that we currently have, and we asked him about putting in taller trees, and he said he would not be able to source trees that big and in a cost-effective manner in any whatsoever, get machinery back there to be able to get those trees to where they needed to be.
I'm sorry, so you can't put any bigger trees than you currently have? Is that what you?
Well, right now at 10 feet, again, he said at this last meeting that we had with him, let's say we go for a 10 or 12 or 14-foot tree. He said now that these trees are in and established, he said they would actually grow at a faster rate than ripping them out and putting new trees in. And we'd be glad to get an email or a copy of him stating that if you'd like.
Can you put a second, if you got a row here, is it possible to put a row back here?
There is, but the ground is flat and the residents back there are actually up on a little bit of a hill. So It's not going to do it. Second
So
row
how
would,
how far are the houses from these 35 feet lights? I'm trying to do some basic geometry here to see how high the trees need to be.
100 yards, 100 plus yards from the lights.
So it's about 300 feet. And let's say the houses are, if you want to protect the first floor, it's probably about 10 feet. That doesn't seem to require particularly large trees depending on where you place them.
Oh, they're up on a hill.
Yeah, no, they're 35 feet, but they're 300 feet. And let's say if you want to protect the first floor, let's say the first floor is 10 feet. So depending on where you put the trees, they don't need to be that high.
The houses are higher than our courts. They go up, it's up a hill in the back. So it's not flat ground that you're looking at.
I get that. I understand when you're saying the houses are sitting on a slope.
Correct.
But there's got to be a way, and I know you're using one particular landscaper, but there's got to be somebody that can do this, that can try to block the lighting, because it seems like that is the main argument. The time between 9 and 10, we may be able to work on that. But it seems like the main thing is the lighting that the residents are having a problem with, especially in the wintertime. Well, I call it the wintertime, but like now.
Yep, and paddle is a winter sport. So the sport of paddle goes from October to March. But again, I'd be glad to get quotes and talk to other landscapers. I can only tell you the one that's been doing work in this township for over 25 years, and somebody who, by the way, would make a ton of money off of telling us that he could put in big trees on our property, and yet told us he can't do it.
I have a question.
So until the trees get to an appropriate height where they block out the light, you could potentially put up screens.
A screen,
Just like a netting sort of thing that blocks out the light. That's not, how high would that need to be? Maybe 20 feet? That's not.
No, the lights are 30 some feet off of the ground.
Yeah, but the houses are some distance away, and I agree that there's.
Right, they're higher, so theoretically we'd have to go higher than that because they have.
Recording in progress.
They have the downward look on it, so they'd have to go higher. If they're on their second floor in a raised property.
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm going to step in. I'm a board member as well. There is a row of trees back near the homes. It's not on our property. It's on theirs. That would be a wonderful place to plant more trees if the trees are for some reason not blocking their view. That was our original suggestion. And we have put on those courts, we have put windscreens as another attempt, as well as we have light shields. We've gone kind of followed a lot of the recommendations because we want to be good neighbors. It's similar, I guess, if you were driving by a field that was 100 yards away through trees, you could see some lighting from there. That's in essence what we're talking about. It's not like a light that's shining on your house, downward, the same exact lights as the street lights that are out in front of their homes. It's literally the same light.
And the trees that are on that back part of their property are 30, 40, 50 feet tall.
So what you're saying is that
Of course, and the leaves would fall off our big tree that we put there too to block light.
You're arborvitae.
But arborvitae, you can't get a 40-foot arborvitae tree. That's what your
Can we just go back to something we just
fellow board
suggested?
member's saying.
Wait, can we just go back to the suggestion that this other gentleman just had, which was to plant on the actual berm? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Is that putting it back?
It's not our property, so we would need permission to do that.
Have you spoken with Painter's Lane about putting arborvitae on that berm?
Yes, they said no.
Oh, they said no, okay.
I have a
They
question.
tell you why they said no? I mean, is it?
Do you know why they said no?
I have a question, and it seems like what I've been hearing is that one of the big reasons why you need to have these lights on and to have them on later is because the economic viability of the club is at stake.
Correct.
But you said you also don't play on weekends. You don't play on Saturdays or Sundays.
That's incorrect.
Sorry?
That's incorrect. The league play is on Wednesday and Thursday. Everybody plays every other night of the week as well. So even us rolling back hours, different nights of the week hurts our club. We're willing to compromise. We can't compromise on league nights. But you can play pickup, you can go with a friend, play on Saturday if you want. It's just not the league, which again, the league is why people become members of the club.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does this also make it, is it the fact that you guys are, I hate to say it, but because you're not a country club in a sense of where you are, and the rest of the folks that are playing in leagues are actually playing on country club?
Correct. 90% of our league is country clubs. And I will say, add on to that, there's only one club in our league, and it's Marion, that has time restrictions on lights, and that's 10 p.m. No other club that I'm aware of has light restrictions.
I feel like, and I think some of the others have asked this whole thing, is that the big problem started because the large arborvitae were cut down.
Correct.
And the large arborvitae were cut down because your contractor built the fourth paddleball court in the wrong place.
No, ma'am.
And without, yes, and that in order to build the walkway, you said that they had to cut it out of the way to have the walkway to the fourth paddleball court, which was built in the wrong place because the builder did not get a permit.
No, ma'am. The paddle court was built 4 feet further horizontally instead of vertically. The trees were behind vertically on the court. The court would actually be in the same exact spot, and we had to put that tree down because the court actually sits where the tree was sitting. But it was that way. It wasn't closer to the other one. So it was built 4 feet off, but it doesn't change the end line of where the court was, where the tree was planted. That would have been in the same spot. And it wasn't a walkway that had to come down. It was because the court was going to be there, whether it was built in the right spot or not.
So were the plans all along that those trees would be planted, but that they would come down in the future?
Yes, ma'am. So even if he built it in the right spot, the plans that were submitted to the zoning hearing board show the court built in the correct spot. Those trees were coming down regardless, and new ones are being put in.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't he go get a building permit?
We thought the contractor did. It wasn't known to us. We actually, I think we were the ones that notified the township that we didn't have a permit and tried to rectify it before they told us. We found out after the fact that he never actually filed it after he built it, and we reached out and said, what do we need to do? And that's obviously what set a lot of this into motion.
So he just took it upon himself to build what he chose to build?
I forwarded him all the correct plans and everything, and correct, he came out with his machinery, started building, and we didn't realize, again, 4 feet on we have a pretty, big property with a couple of acres. But from the naked eye, until it's complete, you don't know it's 4 feet off from where it's supposed to be.
So is this...
At least I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't see it.
Is this contractor still in business?
Correct. So around the country, there's less than 5 contractors that build paddle courts. There's only about 2 on the East Coast that would be willing to do this type of work. So this isn't because we picked a shoddy contractor.
No,
I know you're not alluding to that, but I want to make sure you understand that this isn't something that any contractor can do. It's specialized, and there's, again, only a handful in the country that do it.
Okay, so...
If he hadn't done this, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead, because I'm just saying, can you come back and get him to put the trees in?
We need your microphone on as well.
The residents who are concerned and affected by the lighting are protected. So if he hadn't built, this is all I guess, because I hear you talking like, well, if he hadn't done it, it's horizontal, it's not vertical, it wouldn't have hurt the trees. Those trees, your trees wouldn't have come down. The mature trees wouldn't have come down?
No, the plans, if he would have built it in the correct spot that were submitted to the zoning hearing board, still had the plans for those trees to come down and new ones to come in. Where he built the court wrongfully did not affect that those trees were coming down regardless. And that was in plans that were approved by the Tredyffrin zoning hearing board.
So you're saying that even You should have had a permit.
Correct.
Okay, we agree on
correct.
that. You should have had a
Yeah.
permit, but you're saying, even though it was built in the wrong place, that wouldn't have affected the situation with the lighting.
That is correct, because again, the correct plans that were submitted and approved had those trees coming down if it was built in the correct spot.
Right.
And so you need all 4 courts to run league play?
Correct.
So is St. David's is part of your league?
So you need 4,
So St. David's is part of the league?
yes, correct.
So we have 2 courts at St.
Yeah,
David's.
you don't have as many teams as Picket Post does.
So it's a team, okay.
Yeah, so to actually accommodate the amount of players that are on your team, we'll decipher the amount of, which is why we built the 4th court, because we were outgrowing the 3. We couldn't make it happen with just 3 courts. We were actually losing members to that fact over the past couple of years, declining membership because we didn't have court time ability and we couldn't field enough teams to be able to do it. So the 4th court alleviated that pain for us.
So how often do you need to have this all 4 courts on Wednesdays and Thursdays? Like, is it every single day, every week?
From October to March is when the league runs.
You have league play every single?
Through the end of March.
Every single night?
Wednesdays and Thursdays, every single week. They take off for holidays around end of December. But yes, other than that, the league operates every single week.
Every single Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. You good? You want to talk about trees, or I think we're all right.
She wants more information on the trees.
If we have more information on the trees, Phyllis is our club manager. She's the one that went through everything with our landscaper, went over out there, stood with him when he told us all that. So if you want further clarification, she'll be glad to come up.
Yeah, I mean, I was out there on Sunday and walked next to those trees. They are pretty small and skinny, honestly. I'm sure, I was there. I mean,
They're 8 to 10 feet though, correct?
I don't think so. I don't think most of them are taller than me. There's a few that are taller, but
That's
most
no
are not
problem.
taller
I'll be glad
than
to
me.
measure, and I can send pictures as a follow-up.
I'm happy to
if we
walk
need
out
to.
there. But anyway, it does seem like it's going to take a very, very long time for them to amount to much of anything, honestly, just looking at what's there.
So when those trees were planted last March, a year and a half ago, they were actually 4-foot trees. Now, I have stood next to the trees, and they're twice my size. I'm 5'5". Most of them are over 10 feet tall. They look like they're skinny, but according to the landscaper, they're actually growing very well. They're established, and if we wait it out, they're going to grow pretty quickly because they've more than doubled in a year. So in terms of planting anything larger, besides our own landscaper, we actually went through all of this with the zoning hearing board a few months ago, and we had a landscape engineer here from Howell Engineering. And he explained that it would not be possible to plant anything larger than a 10 to 12-foot tree. And the reason is the root ball. The root ball is huge and heavy, requires very special equipment. The trees are very specialized, and it's just not something that we could even do, even if they were able to be sourced. It's very difficult to even source them. So just because of the weight of the root ball and the sheer size of it based on a tree that's already grown that much. And he also confirmed, I just had a conversation with him last week, that yes, any tree that's established, if they're growing, you want to leave those in there, because taking those out now and disrupting them and planting other trees, kind of who knows, and these have more than doubled. So the expectation is that these trees are going to grow to 30 feet, probably a lot sooner than we think they are. They will get thicker and bigger. They do still look a little scrawny now on the top, but you can see them starting to fill out. Our landscaper looked at them. He did say that maybe there's a couple of them that are not doing so good. He'd pull those out and replace them with trees of similar size. We would even add more. And as to the trees that were taken out, not only did they have to come out, because I spoke to the landscaper at that time, I didn't love the idea of getting rid of these trees, but he told me these old trees are very unhealthy anyway. There is no saving them. They should come out. So a lot of conversations were had before we didn't just willy-nilly go in and take a bunch of trees down. We had to take them down. They couldn't be moved. They were in terrible shape anyway. And so that was the plans that we submitted when we submitted for the original variance. And we did clearly say in there that those trees would be taken out and we would replace them. It was only like 3 trees. We actually planted, I believe, 9 or 10, and are even happy to plant more in accordance with what had been asked from us from the zoning hearing board to add more on the ends. We're happy to do that, but we would feel terrible taking out the ones that are there. I mean, like Jake said, our
I don't think
landscape.
anyone was asking you to take them out.
What's that?
I haven't heard anybody ask you to take them out.
The zoning hearing board, in one of the original orders in there, it does say to take out those trees and replace them with 10 to 12-foot trees, which is what's there. But it specifically does say that, and nobody sees any point into doing that. It's just sad. They're new trees and they're doing well, but we would happily plant more to fill it in more, or whatever's asked of us, but they can't be any bigger, and they're not going to shield the lights for a long time. On the other hand, as Andrew suggested, if Painter's Lane plants trees on their berm right in front of their homes, that will shield light, because we would need our trees to be 50 or 60 feet tall just because the houses sit higher and they look a little bit down. So,
I guess I'm confused, because in the current agreement you have with the zoning hearing board, you're supposed to plant, there's some exhibit A16, which I don't have, green giant arborvitae, 10 to 12 feet tall, 5 to 6 feet at the base. You're supposed to do it during October this year, I guess, this fall's planting season. Is
Yes.
that not what you're proposing to do anymore?
I'm sorry?
Is that not what you're proposing, or what? I don't understand what you're saying anymore.
That is what the zoning hearing board, that was one of the orders that they gave us, was to plant new trees and to remove the trees that are currently there.
Well, and so, it doesn't say you have to remove them, it just says you have to plant these. I don't see anything where it says that you have to be removed.
Okay, I mean.
It just doesn't say it, I'm just trying to understand.
12-foot trees there right now, again, if you want to walk and we can measure them.
David, if you're looking at the agreement, it says that, right? That's what it says by plant, but the original decision said something different. Yeah, so I think you're getting the two different things confused, that was all.
I'm sorry.
This is a hypothetical question, but supposing the owner of the berm, the land that the berm is on, said, okay, you can plant trees out there, would you plant trees at your cost?
So that's, of course, going to depend on the price and how many trees. We can't just say we'll plant an unlimited amount of trees at anybody's request.
No, but trees you said right now the properties are higher, and if trees were planted on the berm, they would shield the houses from the trees. So would you plant an adequate number, if you had permission from the owner, would you be willing to plant an adequate number of trees to provide the shielding that you say would happen if you planted them on the berm?
Yeah,
I would say we'd be willing to, certainly.
Yeah,
Yes,
we'd take
we'd
it
certainly
under
be willing to
consideration.
take that
Absolutely.
under
I do have a video
consideration,
of the view from our property and the property behind us, if you guys want to see it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Phyllis, am I correct?
Phyllis.
Yes,
Phyllis.
my name is Phyllis, yes.
Let me ask you a question. You said you all went and spoke to or you sent a letter or something to the residents, and they said no, that they would not let you plant on their property. Am I correct, or?
No, we actually had a meeting with them before all of this blew up, essentially, and ended up here. We had a meeting with them on our property, and actually, Mr. Miller was in attendance at the meeting. I don't know if he heard that part where we talked about it, because I think Andrew may have gone outside with them, and they had a brief, it came up that perhaps they look at putting trees there because it truly makes sense, because their trees would shield a lot more faster because they're right near their homes, as opposed to trees that are 200 yards away. And they said, no, why should we have to do that? That was the response that we got.
Okay, you're saying why should they have to do that, but did was it offered that you all would do that? Not, they take the expense or the trials or tribulations of doing it, but you all would put
Right.
that in for them so that, we'll buy the arborvitaes, we'll put them in, we'll make sure that they're in specific places that'll block the light from it. Was that spoken to, or was it just said, can we put these trees in?
Yeah, correct. So we would absolutely take that under consideration as long as we had a plan that made sense. And if they wanted trees back there, we'd look at that and do it with them. And we'd partner with them to do it.
Because I'm thinking maybe that might be
again,
the olive branch that needs to be, that may be the olive branch that needs to be given.
Yeah,
Because I don't think they heard about you putting, I think maybe I wasn't there, so I can't say. But I think all they heard was, put trees in my backyard and it'll block it out. But maybe if you all gave them the olive branch to say, this is why we're trying to do this, and we are willing to pay to put these trees in specific spots, that might help.
Well, I just want to point out too, that landscaper that does their same property is the one that does ours. So if they're not going to plant those big trees on ours, they're going to say the same thing to them. Again, if it's 10 to 12 foot arborvitae, we'll do it, but that's not going to provide them any relief for the light for a couple of years.
But you may need to find another landscaper is what I'm thinking too.
Sure.
I understand you.
The landscape engineer and the landscaper, we can go outside both of them and find another
Maybe
one.
there's another landscaper who will come.
Sure.
I'm just saying, that might be I'm trying to figure out an olive branch that can be passed so that this can get resolved. Because right now, it sounds like we're at a standstill.
So, do you have Exhibit A16 from the original zoning order?
No. I don't have the zoning order with me.
That's the landscaping plan that you guys agreed to, and that has not been, you guys haven't contested that, so you're agreeing to that. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You haven't, that's not part of that, that's not something you've appealed, so I assume you're agreeing to the original landscaping plan that the zoning hearing board approved?
We appealed the entire
entire
decision.
thing?
Correct. Correct.
Appealed everything to court of complete, I guess I'm looking at
So
the
then
agreement between
you
us.
appealed everything, but then you came out with, we have a draft settlement agreement?
A draft settlement agreement.
So, but you did, so you, in there was not included any, or in the settlement agreement, you didn't challenge number 6.
Which was planting additional trees.
Which is
We-
planting
we-
additional
we
trees
challenged everything with
12
our
feet
appeal.
high.
We challenged everything with our appeal. And we did, in fact, challenge, there are 2 sets of trees. There's the trees behind, and then there's additional trees that Picket Post has agreed to plant at the curve where Chesterbrook Academy is. They can't plant a whole line of them because there's a slope, and you can't get materials and equipment in to properly plant the trees. But they have agreed to plant trees, some additional trees, and to address the tree issues.
Okay, so that
But
may be.
if you would like us
That may be reflected in Exhibit A16. That's what you had asked for.
Yeah, we don't
That may
have-
be reflected there, because I'm looking at number 6 in the conditions, and it says a planting screen as depicted in Exhibit A16, installed at the beginning of next planting period, all planted no later than the 15th, 10 to 12 foot in linear height and 5 to 6 feet in base diameter at time of planting.
Right.
I mean, it just seems.
Right, and that's what our trees are right now, is about 10 to 12 feet.
There are
That's
the
what
trees
they've
that are
grown
there
to.
are that size. So there's no need to plant a tree when that tree is already there. There's already 10 to 12
There's already 10 to
foot
10 foot
trees.
trees there. That's what we were trying to say. Correct.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah.
We're just trying to we're just trying to see what the diagram looks like, and no one has it, I guess.
So,
All right, so we have to get this diagram. All right, do we have any, just for a second, there's a lot has been said by the Picket Post group. Do we have any residents here who want to speak also?
Yeah, we have many members that are residents that would love to line up and speak as well.
Okay, let's have some residents speak, and then we'll hear from painters.
While we do that, I would note that prior to the May decision of the board, the hours for Picket Post were until 9:45 p.m. every day of the week, 7 days a week. So until the board unilaterally, the zoning hearing board by their order unilaterally changed it, it was 9:45 p.m. So really what Picket Post is asking for is 15 minutes of an extension, 2 days a week, and then they're giving them 45 minutes more than they would have had before. So I just want to make that point.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Karen Joyce. I live in Berwyn, Tredyffrin Township. Moved here 24 years ago, raised our kids here, public school. Our grandkids now go to the public schools here. When we moved here 24 years ago, neighbor told us about this little gem that was nearby that was the most chill, affordable club you could ever find. And the name of that club was Picket Post. We joined, we enjoyed the pool as a family. And after a couple of years, when our kids got to be junior high, high school, kind of outgrew the club, was more involved in kids' activities, and we left the club for a couple of years. Then about 10, 12 years ago, I rediscovered the club as a paddle member. I play at night. I still work full-time. I have to work at night. And we have a great community of paddle players. And we're here tonight to discuss Court 4 and the lights. When I heard, I've never been a member of the board. I'm just here as an active member of the community who enjoys this little gem that sits in our area. And when I heard about the neighbors having an issue with the lights, I have to tell you, I do have a picture, and I know you've all been to Picket Post, and you've seen, and those houses are way behind. We said, what neighbors? I promise you, I do not even see the neighbors here. I don't know what window, and if there are any neighbors here, I'd love to meet you. Sure, absolutely. Can't wait to hear you. So I personally, again, I'm not a member of the board, but I offer an olive branch. Can you please, let's resolve this. Which window, which light, can we put a baffle? Which window where a room darkening shade doesn't prevent it? I don't know what the issue is, I really don't, but I really would love to resolve this. And to the board members, it sounds as though this issue has been ongoing before Court 4, because I can recall being here years ago where we only had 3 courts and we still had to plead our case. And I don't know if you need to go to bed at 9 o'clock, totally understand that, but let's resolve this together. And I ask that this be considered, I know we can solve this, and how I know this is because sadly, 2 years ago when we lost our pickle program, a group of us started playing at Tea Garden. And one thing I noticed at Tea Garden, I'll show you this picture. But that shows residents' houses that sit directly in full view of lights that are there. And neighborly, we want to be neighborly. You are our neighbors. I live in your community as well. And I don't know if you ever hear of those neighbors there, but there you can see lights going directly into a bedroom of at least 2 homes. But it's a community. When you move to Tredyffrin, we don't move into homes or houses. We move into a community where we live together, and let's solve this. To the board members, I ask that you consider this with sensibility, unencumbered with anything that may have happened with this club in the past. And we, as members, had nothing to do with anything that may have happened with this club in the past. A lot of these people were not even members. Again, I've never been a board member. But let's deal with what is now in the here and now. What window? Let's solve it. And let's move forward working together. We're all neighbors, we're all citizens, taxpayers, voters, just as everybody here. Thank you very much for your consideration. And again, just the ask again is 4 courts, 10 p.m. every night of the week. Every night of the week. I know a lot has been talked about league play. As a nighttime player, if we don't go till 10 o'clock, it means that nighttime play starts at 5 o'clock versus 5:30. I can't have a tough enough time getting to the courts at 5:30, and I try and play at least 3 days a week. If play doesn't go till 10, I have to try and get on the court at 5 o'clock. I can't do that. So please, our crime is that we're trying to stay active members of the community, which is what we should be trying to promote. Thank you.
No, wait a second, please. Hey, Bill, what time do lights go off at Tea Garden?
They're not till, it depends. In summer hours, we use them till like 9. Yeah, the Tea Garden Summer League goes till 9.
Good, cool. Hi, Megan Smith, 111 Cavalry Court, which is in the paddock of Chesterbrook. So we live directly in sight also of picket posts and on the same level ground, so not even to have the luxury of living up top. But I have been a member since 2016 of picket posts and would love to just double down on Jake's sentiments about the level of community that we have at Picket Post. Personally, I bought my home in Picket Post in Chesterbrook because of the facilities that Picket Post offered. Huge racket sports fan my entire life since I was 3 years old. First I want to say is that Chesterbrook was voted the #1 neighborhood in the country. I'll repeat that, the country to live in because of its mission, and this has been not just this year, it's been the past 3 or 4 years, and you can check my sources, I'm not really sure, but we definitely have been the #1 neighborhood, so we take pride as neighbors living there. We are based upon a mission of community. It's our individual HOAs, it's the Chesterbrook as a community. I also want to clarify that my home is closer than any of the Painters Lane homes. And if you want to take a ruler, I'm happy to walk out with you. I can see the lights, I can see the courts from my third floor window, and respectfully, have never found that it has been a nuisance ever. Now, I have gone and walked and seen the trees that are around the courts that are near Painters Lane, that are the new trees that Picket Post, along with the fences, many other things that have been put into place because of this Picket Post / Painters Lane debate. I think that Picket Post has done an excellent job, and I really want to also thank our board for really supporting the members here and fostering an environment of community. And to Karen's point, that there would be a massive hole in Chesterbrook, just like anything at Wilson Farm or Chesterbrook Academy or any of the trails that were to be shuttered by any kind of nuisance or policy that someone perceives. And again, want to make sure that this is a perception. So that's just something else I wanted to mention there. What else? Is there anything else? I also, just posing a question here, and I know this is going to open a can of worms, but respectfully, I want to know why we're spending so much time on an issue about lights being put into someone's home, when particularly we should be talking about putting a fence in Wilson Farm Park, when there was a child that lost, unfortunately, his life not too long ago. So it seems like a little bit of a, I don't know what's more important to you, but thanks.
Yeah, let's just clarify something here. The township isn't trying to put Picket Post out of business. We are trying to work with you guys. You built the courts without a permit. We went through zoning. You've got almost everything done. We're talking about a few hours here and there. That's the discussion we're having. So we are trying to work with you guys. It's not that this is, we don't like Picket Post. I live in Chesterbrook. My kids were members of Picket Post. We swam on the piranhas. Like, we're all fans. We just want to come up with a solution that works for everybody. So that's what we're trying to do here. Okay? Thanks.
You're about to. You're welcome. Arthur Zadrozny, 16 Painters Lane. Exhibit 1. I want to welcome everybody from Picket Post here. I'm going to ask, where were you folks back in March and April when we should have been having this conversation? All right. In all seriousness, at the March zoning board meeting, the board asked, could we and Picket Post get together? And I sent an email to one of the gentlemen that was up here saying, let's get together, let's work this out. Got no response. I'm sorry. If you look at the first set of pictures, and I showed you this last month, you can see the very healthy, mature trees that were in existence blocking the light from Court 3 that provides the barrier to our neighbors. And if you look at the next picture below that, you could see where Court 4 was put in. Half of those, 3/4 of those trees could have been left standing. There was no reason for those trees to have to be removed. They were very healthy trees. As far as the lights coming in, windows, I showed you these pictures last month, and I have neighbors here that will gladly testify to the lights coming in. It sadly is a problem. But there's something else that's happened since. If you look on page 2, you'll see the trees. We could go out and measure them, yeah, whether they're 6 foot, 8 foot, whatever today. But there's also been some fencing put up. And the way this fencing was constructed provides some interesting dilemmas because it's put right where supposedly the additional trees were supposed to be planted according to the zoning board's instructions to provide shielding. And there's something else too. I've heard the word neighbors spoken a lot. You'll see there's an additional section of fence that was built specifically to barricade residents from Chesterbrook, who used to be able to walk freely across this open grass to access the walking trails in parcel 19. So if we're talking about being neighbors, why are we blocking the very pathways that make Chesterbrook so livable? I'm sorry? Yes. I will gladly, and since it's been brought up over here, yes. On April 22nd, 1 week after the curfew for the season had expired, instead of calling the police again like I had to do in March when there were people playing past 11 o'clock at night, I thought I'd be neighborly and just walk over and say, folks, you're not supposed to be playing with the lights on. I understand some videos were taken. I've yet to see videos showing me doing anything other than asking, please, can you respect the curfew? And if the response to that was a fence that's going to block everybody from having access to these trails, then be careful how, it's a new definition of what neighbors are. Now, we can't put these trees back. There is something that I had proposed back in the zoning board meeting, and I'm going to put this out there again. When it conveniences the picket post people to not want to have to chase their balls into the woods, they managed to put an additional fence up on their court 1 that provides a chicken wire fence to prevent the balls from going into the woods. That fence could easily be put on courts 3 and 4 to provide an additional barrier, windscreen barrier from the lights until such time as a sufficient number of trees been planted and they grow back. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but it's a solution. It's a solution we wanted to offer, except no one from Picket Post ever followed up on it. All we heard was, can't do it. So there are other options. I don't think this is the right environment for it. We offered to sit down. We have not said no to anything. All we have asked for is a chance to dialogue. The only thing we've gotten is fences barricading us from accessing the trails in Chesterbrook. Thank you.
Art, just one quick question.
Yeah.
Did they ever ask you about putting, or are you one of the officers at Picket Post or no?
At Picket Post?
Oh, right, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm treasurer at Painters Lane.
Painters
Yes.
Lane. Did they ever ask the Painters Lane board about planting on the berm on Painters Lane property?
No, they never did. And yeah, there really isn't much room to plant because in order to plant on the berm on our side of the berm, we'd have to remove all the deciduous trees.
Yeah, that's
there.
fine.
Yeah.
I was asking, but they never asked you. You guys said you had, and they said no, but it was never a question. That's fine. I'm good.
There was a brief conversation the evening of March 4th, but I expected that conversation to lead to more substantive conversations, which never happened.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller, if I may, before we proceed with public comment, I'd like to ask Mr. Zelinski to respond to those comments. I think an explanation is warranted at this point in time. Very good, thank you. Got it.
So wait, so let me just ask a question. I've got to go back with David because I think that, so you're saying you never got an email, a text, or a phone call asking about the other trees? to be planted on the
Correct.
boroughs.
Yeah. I did provide you in the packet I gave you last month,
Right.
the emails I sent to the contact we were given asking, are we going to get together? And the person acknowledging he wasn't even aware of the fact that the zoning board had made that request to the two parties.
So is it a great possibility that everybody doesn't have the right phone numbers or emails to get back?
Oh, I know one person has my cell phone, and I have his, because he did respond at one point.
Okay.
And he did respond to my emails at one point.
All right, thanks, Art.
Okay.
Thank you. Before Rich goes, I'd like to just
There's two more.
follow up on a couple of those items real quick. One, the fence that he's saying is above one of the courts that blocks the balls from getting out. It's not a fence, it's a net, and the net has holes in it that is about a little bit smaller than the size of the ball, so the ball can't go through the net and it blocks the net. It has holes in it that light can go through very easily, so it's not meant to block light. It will never block light, and putting something up there that would block light would actually act as a sail, and it would actually move the outer perimeter of the courts if the wind blows and does that. So that's not possible. Yes, he did not receive an email, a text, or anything about the trees, but he just admitted that he did meet with people from Picket Post briefly, so we'll let that go. And then the last point was the trees that he brought up where the fence is going, that's on the Chesterbrook Academy side, not on the residence side. And we still are absolutely willing to plant trees on the Chesterbrook Academy side, even though they had no request to do so, but we'll gladly do it.
All right, thanks.
Excuse me, so on these pictures that we got, are you saying these fences are on Chesterbrook Academy side?
Correct.
They put them up?
No, we put them up, they're on our property, but right next to that is Chesterbrook Academy, not residences.
Yeah. Both my kids went to
Also-
Chesterbrook, I'm very familiar with it.
Also, are these the trees that you're talking about?
Those are the trees that were planted over a year ago, correct. That's a picture from over a year ago as well, approximately.
So do you have a recent picture, or was the picture that the lady circulated, was that recent?
And that fence is correct.
So this is a recent picture? What? About a month ago?
About a month ago.
Okay, so it's recent.
And some of those trees, you'll notice a deer in there, so the deer are eating.
Yeah, well, I live in Chesterbrook, I know how this goes. All right, let's keep going, because the Eagles have started, by the way, just so you know, so let's keep going here.
Rich Finelli, I'm a 25-year Chesterbrook resident, also the Picket Post current board president. I was in the room the day that we had a meeting with several members of the Painters Lane HOA. We did offer to, there seems to be a gap in the trees at the edge of their property that are uphill, and we had offered to have a discussion about planting trees there, and someone on the Painters Lane side said no to that, and that they may not have been speaking on behalf of the entire HOA, and they would probably have to vote on something like that, but we did propose putting trees closer up, either on their property or closer to their property because they're uphill, and we got a no, but I believe the Picket Post board would be amenable to doing that. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else? Robert, you want to speak? I guess you had your hand up.
Good evening. My name is Robert Singh. I live at 19 Painters Lane, which is one of the 6 homes that are really lining the berm or the area behind the picket post. I want to talk about 2 points tonight. First, in my capacity as a resident there, the reason why this is before this Board of Supervisors is because of the violation of the zoning board rulings for their operation stemming from cutting down the trees to build a 4th court. So it's really of their own doing that we're here. We're not here because we're residents that have existed there for many years and all of a sudden we're having a problem with them. It is a problem of their own doing. So let me remind you of the following. The picket post was approved under Appeal 6101 to build a shed and paddle courts along with light towers over 20 feet in height, which could be used from October 15th, the fall, through March 31st, the spring of the following year, restricting play after the hours of 8 p.m. weekdays, Sunday to Thursday, and 10 p.m. on weekends, which is Friday and Saturday. As part of this decision, the zoning board was ordered to plant 11 evergreen trees to serve as sound and light barrier for the residents of Painters Lane. In 2004, they were granted a second variance to allow play under the lights until 9:45 p.m. weeknights, and this extended their season until April 15th. As part of that variance, they agreed to install an additional 3 evergreen trees to serve as a light and noise barrier. In 2011, a third variance allowed their season to start earlier, September 1st of the fall, and then a fourth variance allowed with no lights from April 16th to August 31st, essentially turning this into a year-long facility. The most recent, in the 2004 order, number 37-04, also required the picket post to post signs asking players to be respectful in the volume and content of their speech during play on the court. The most recent variance to install the fourth paddle court was, as we know, performed without obtaining the correct permits and boundaries, resulting in violation. So all of this is because of their doing. Nothing that we as residents have asked for, except if you're not going to honor the variances that allowed you to operate, you need to go back to the variances that forced you to operate until 8 p.m. because the evergreen trees are now down or not at the prescribed height. As far as the noise and speech, we don't know if these signs exist because, as we've talked about, there are fences there now to prevent anyone, along with warning signs, up to 5 of them, warning that no trespassing and the property is video protected. My second point, I'm going to speak in my capacity as an elected member of the Tredyffrin Easttown School Board and a physician. I wanted to say something about why the lights and playtime and foul language is important to the people in the 6 homes. 57% of the children that go to school that live in Painters Lane are in those 6 homes. That's why it's important. There are plenty of studies that show the importance of sleep times in children. In fact, it's so important that the entire Tredyffrin Easttown School District pushed back start times to account for the improvement in mental and physical health of children. So allowing these courts to permit on school nights, Wednesday and Thursdays, as they've asked, until 10 p.m. will negatively affect the children that live in these 6 homes, particularly in Painters Lane. In conclusion, they violated the permitting to build a 4th court, cut down trees, put up fences. These are not consistent with being good neighbors. And this continues to be our source of opposition to their appeal. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other comments?
My name is Sandy DePhillips, and I've been a member at Picket Post for probably 15 years and have joined specifically for paddle in those years and have watched the program grow tremendously. I don't quite understand this whole lighting thing. I live in the borough of Westchester, which glows at nighttime, and I simply have blackout shades that work tremendously. We're talking about 6 homes that have the ability to put something in place on those windows to not be what they consider confronted by light coming in. I just don't, there are options out there that each person can take some sense of responsibility in for their home, which I have done for years living in the borough of Westchester. And you can block out light and get your sleep and get your kids to bed. And so this is such a huge manifestation of just a simple problem that can be corrected on the homeowner side.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Oh, sorry. My name is Quincy Zane. I live in the 13 Panthers Lane. I'm not the one of those 6 units, because for your knowledge, the Panthers Lane has total 22 units. I'm on the 13, which is the little bit in mid of the whole cul-de-sac. What Robert mentioned 6 is at the end of the cul-de-sac, which is directly facing the picket post. So I'm in the mid, so not directly facing. I want to showcase the 2 cases. One is because I walk dog at the very late evening. So normally around the 9:30 or 10, when I walk dog, for normal day, it should be very quiet and peaceful, and then I can get dog quickly, get back home, and really everyone, household member can get to the bedtime readiness. But few occasions in the late evening, like a 9:30 or 10, the tennis court still active, and it was lots of the noise and the loud and the shouting, and caused my dog just cannot keep calm. And we have to spend more time at home to try to calm my dog down, and then we can get started with the sleep readiness of the day, which is we really don't want it. This is the first case of my story. The second is as a community, we discuss of our improvement, like put the steps, because there is a slope from the Chesapeake, the walking trail to the level, which is like a 45 degree of the slope. We put the steps, and when we discuss whether we need to put that on, or because that will open the whole door to the outsider to our community, and we decide we want to be a good neighbor. So we put the steps, and even we put the railings next to the step. Because we noticed most of the swimming club and kids from the other side of the Chesapeake, the boulevard, they came across from their cul-de-sac. Sorry, I don't know the name of the cul-de-sac, taking that step. So we really want to be a friendly neighbor. But on the other side, that the fence, because my wife once time walked dog, and some faculty, some staff from the picket post clearly mentioned to my wife, don't go here, because you are against that staff pointing to the sign over there. And my wife really feel this is really intimidating type of the wording at that time. So I want to show this the opposite way of as a neighbor of this whole community.
Thank you. So,
Just respond to 2 points that were raised about my comments.
sure. And then we're going to get going here.
First off, there's a difference between Chesterbrook and Borough of Westchester. Those of us that moved to Chesterbrook moved here for the serenity that's here. And we appreciate it when we moved in. We would like to keep it the way it was when we moved in, not have to put up darkeners on our windows so we can't enjoy the view. Somehow I'm not feeling very neighborly right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, just let Mr. Zdrozny finish, please.
Yeah, we let you guys talk, so let him talk, please.
As far as the suggestion that I put forward about the additional fencing, a support structure that is on courts 1 and 2 to keep balls from going out, I know it's chicken wire, but you can do something very similar to that on courts 3 and 4 and put a windscreen up there. It does not have to be so secured that it would become a sail. If the wind is blowing that hard, you're probably not going to be playing out there anyway. There are engineering solutions available for people who are willing to sit down and talk. We remain open and willing to talk. We were the ones that were given the letter saying you're no longer allowed to talk with us. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Pat, I have a question for you. We're actually not voting on this tonight, right?
I don't think anyone's necessarily looking for action on the part of the board, correct? I
Okay.
think this was an opportunity for you to hear from Picket Post since you had not yet heard from them.
Okay.
And from their side, correct?
All right, so thanks for everyone's input. Any other board comment, questions, anybody? We're good? All right, thank you. Now is a motion to approve the following escrow releases. Mr. Burgo.
Chairman Miller and members of the board, the first release is for Sweetsford Plaza in the amount of $334,178.63. It is a final release for the Echo apartment development at the intersection of Contention and Sweetsford. It includes a variety of items, including as-built, pins and monuments, guide rail,
Hang on, Mr.
tree
Burgo.
planting.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we could please just ask you all to move your conversations outside. We do still have some business on the agenda. Please ask you to take your conversations outside. Thank you all.
Go ahead, Steve.
So the following request for Echo has been inspected by our folks at Princeton Hydro and reviewed by Township staff, and we are recommending the board proceed ahead with that final release this evening. Do you want me to I can do the second one too. We'll do them as release request number 2 is for the Delaware Valley Friends School. This is a partial release in the amount of $696.64. The balance remaining is $566,760.87. This is for work related to a variety of items: concrete, asphalt paving, some other underground stormwater systems, and ongoing erosion and sediment controls with the school. That has been inspected by both Princeton Hydro and Township engineering staff, and we are recommending release this evening for both of these escrows.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any public comment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to authorize advertisement of a public hearing for ordinance HR 168, solid waste. This will be on October 21st. Mr. Duraco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This ordinance is an ordinance that I've been working on along with Gabrielle Ignari in the solicitor's office as a result of essentially DEP coming in and reviewing the ordinance and then asking, our ordinance necessarily wasn't in compliance, and so we need to bring it up to compliance, as well as our, real deep dive and look at our recycling program in the township. And so, we worked closely with a staff member at DEP. We've made a lot of revisions, which we reviewed, and the solicitor's office, DEP, has approved the ordinance as it stands, and so the next part of the process would be to have the board authorize us to advertise a public hearing and then enact the ordinance.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Any board comment or questions? So Mr. Duraco, I had suggested a few changes. Have those been incorporated?
Yeah, so the changes for the rest of the board and the public, some of the language in 168.5. So we will essentially, we're just going to remove after prevailing time on the day prior to, we'll remove a scheduled collection to just say, prior to a collection. Chairman Miller pointed out that sometimes Blazinski or Whitetail will miss a collection, and so we're not going to ask people to bring their trash down, bring it back, push it back down. And so that's going to be a small change, as well as to 168.21.5. We'll make the language under the recycling section match that of the trash section.
Any board questions or comments? Go ahead, Bhaskar.
I had a couple of minor comments, but I'll offer those as amendments to the motion when we actually bring it up for public hearing.
Thank you.
I hate to do this right now, but I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah.
You said you couldn't put your garbage, trash, or recycling out before 6 p.m. on a scheduled on the day prior to a scheduled date. I'm probably going to do it before 6, depending on what's going on in my house.
We're going to
And where I'm
enforce.
going to be.
Yeah.
I know we're not going to have the
That-
garbage police running around, but still.
For you, we will not.
No, but I don't know.
That
It
was,
just seems kind of late, kind of late.
that section and that language was directly, that came from a resident and some complaints.
Yes,
she
we
had
know
made to
that.
the
So we'll
board,
go by 6 o'clock. If I put it out by 4, it's not a big deal. Okay. I just sort of, it hit me there when it's like in the law,
Absolutely.
I like to abide by the law.
We had a pretty good discussion about this and think the compromise we have now is reasonable. I think it's a reasonable solution.
I'm unreasonable.
No, you're anyway, you're fine. I think this is a good solution. Any other board comment or questions? Public comment or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any board member new matters?
David, just to clarify, that ordinance will be, as approved, will be as you amended in those two sections. Okay, just to clarify.
The change I made was just with respect to...
168.5 and 168.21.5. Got it, thank you.
And Mr. McKenna, when there's a public hearing, I will be able to offer amendments, is that correct?
I'd much rather you offer them tonight because we're going to advertise it to be adopted next month.
As it turns out, I did not get a chance to read the ordinance because I had a conference all weekend. So when I actually read the ordinance, I'm going to have comments. I can certainly email them to you before the meeting.
That's fine, but right now the board has authorized it to be advertised in its current form, subject to those two amendments, to be up for consideration of adoption. So whatever comments you have, I can't change that ordinance until we come back to a public meeting, and it would have to be reauthorized, to be re-advertised as amended.
And I think that's what we're going to have to do.
So therefore, should we... Okay, what's the procedure for me to give my...
Either the board decides to go forward as it voted, or you can instead, I guess, change your mind, table it, and we'll come back next month after we receive comments from Supervisor Bhaskar with any comment changes, and then reauthorize advertisement.
Okay,
Well, the next month is, wait, just let me ask one question. So next month is also when we'll get any public comment, correct?
Correct, although you certainly asked for it tonight as well.
I did, we have none, and I
Yeah.
assume most people are in the same situation that Supervisor Bhaskar is in, which is they ignored it for this month, and next month when we're approving it would provide comment.
Entirely possible, correct.
So I would therefore make a motion that we defer the motion to authorize that advertisement to the next board meeting.
And because you anticipate significant comments, or do you think there's going to be much?
Unfortunately, since I haven't read the ordinance,
You have no way to know.
I don't know. And normally I would have read it this weekend, but I had a conference this weekend, so I was not able to read it.
The other thing I'll just note is that any significant changes, we're going to have to send back to DEP and make sure they're okay with it. Probably, and I would recommend you do it before you enact.
Chances are most of what I have was going to be inconsistencies between the items. So I don't think they're going to be materially significant, but when I read stuff, I do find things.
The only thing I would caution, and a lot of what's written in the ordinance was directly from notes that we received from DEP. So not necessarily things that, quite frankly, we agreed with or wanted to include, but are required to with DEP. So I would say we can absolutely talk about it, and then Gabby and I can go back through all of our notes and versions that we've written with them and just go back and forth that way. If there's something that needs to be clarified, I can tell you.
No, I think from my point of view, I did do a quick scan today. I didn't see anything, that made me want to throw up or anything like that. But the fact is, when I read things in detail, I do find things that need tweaking.
I'd be willing to risk it this time. I went through it pretty carefully. I'd be willing to risk it, and then if we find things, we'll have to re-advertise. I mean, unless anyone else feels differently. Want to go forward with it? Yeah, okay. All right, any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, abstain, all right, thanks. Now, any board member new matters? Any citizen new matters? Sure, come on up.
Can you hear me? Thank you for allowing me to make these remarks. My name is Jessica Weingarten, and I'm a long-term resident of Chesterbrook. I'd like to request that the board consider an outright ban of gas-powered leaf blowers. I'm wearing a mask because I'm recovering from stage 4 cancer. I do what I can to decrease the possibility of catching any respiratory diseases and to keep myself as healthy as possible. The gas-powered leaf blowers are a direct threat to my and others' health. According to the Institute for Climate Change, Environmental Health, and Exposomics at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, I'm going to read this, GLB emissions include carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, benzene, nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, and particulate matter, in addition to impacting respiratory health and increasing asthma risk and severity. These pollutants are associated with numerous health outcomes, including autism, cancer, heart disease, and dementia. While I'm personally not at high risk for asthma, autism, heart disease, or dementia, I do not want to get cancer again. And I'm asking you to help protect me and other people from the airborne pollution as well as the noise pollution. As we all know, too much noise can cause deafness. Gas-powered leaf blowers are so extremely noisy and polluting that in just 1 hour of use, they emit as much air and climate pollution as driving from here in Tredyffrin down to Miami, Florida. Tredyffrin would not be the first place to implement a ban. The state of California implemented one at the start of this year. Some of the more than 100 places that have banned or restricted the use of gas-powered leaf blowers include Washington, D.C., Portland, Oregon, Montgomery County, Maryland, Burlington, Vermont, Montclair, New Jersey, and Evanston, Illinois. All over the country, we can do this here in Tredyffrin. I know that there will be blowback from landscapers. They have money invested in the blowers. I get that. But in addition to using them just for fallen leaves in the fall, here in Chesterbrook, which is a large part of Tredyffrin, they use them every single week. And they pick up an occasional leaf, an occasional blade of grass, discarded wrappers, and whatever else they can find. And it just blows into the parking lots and then down the stormwater sewers. And potentially it can clog things up. And we have enough problems in our township with runoff and flooding without intentionally adding to it. So here's my simple solution to the landscapers' cost issues. First, just don't blow things around when it's just little grass cuttings. It's wasteful. Just stop. Say no. Another option is to use mulching mowers. They take grass cuttings, which now are blown into the street, and they turn them into fertilizer. This increases the nitrogen in the soil and decreases the need for chemical fertilizers, which are environmentally terrible, and not to mention potentially harmful to animals. It saves both time and money and effort for the landscapers. Then, instead of blowing all the leaves in the fall, which has the added detrimental effect of disturbing the topsoil and perennials, causing direct damage, they could take a step back in time. I did the research, and for the low price of $19 and change each, they could buy rakes. That's cheaper in the long run than what they spend on the fuel for their blowers. I raked leaves as a kid. Did any of you rake leaves ever? Anybody? Yeah. Did it kill you? No. It's good. It's exercise. All these picket post people are talking about how good exercise is. Raking. It's not hard. It's fun. You can jump in the leaf piles. The point is that banning gas-powered leaf blowers doesn't mean an automatic shift to battery-powered ones. There are creative solutions that benefit all our residents, our pets, the environment, and can be fiscally responsible. Thank you again for your time in this matter. I really hope you'll consider this, because I'd like to be able to eventually someday take my mask off and not have all that excess pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other citizen new matters? The next meeting of the Board of Supervisors is October 7th. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Hear a second? Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.